Madam President, it's 6 p.m. Everyone has been brought in from the waiting room on the Zoom call.
All right, thank you, Mr. Clerk. Let's call the meeting of the City of Tonawanda Council to order. Can you please call the roll?
Lulanich,
Here.
Nocera,
Here.
Rautenstrau,
Here.
Mylum,
Here.
Cook.
Here. All right, thank you, everybody, for joining us. I'm assuming many of you are here on the reassessment topic. Right now, we're in the informal session, so there is no public comment period. But I will let you know when we get to the formal session where there will be opportunity for the public to speak, okay? So with that said, I'd like to go through our agenda. On the minutes. This is Lulanich. Any comments or questions on them? All right, the next resolution we have is the recommendation of the city engineer for the award and design of the City Hall Court Office renovation project. Any questions on this? Would like it.
I'll take it back, President.
Mr. Rautenstrau? Commissioner of Deeds? I'll take it. Nobody. All right. Then the next resolution we have is in regards to the shoreline improvement, the type 2 seeker. Any questions on that?
Is this the one around the bend?
That's my understanding, Mr. Lamonaco.
Is this seeker for the area around the bend and going down the canal, or is it?
For augmenting the top of the slope where we kind of lost some of the riprap, so it's getting stone back to the top. So just so council is aware, it's like you're gonna see, I think there's 6 that we've got today, and then there's 2 more that I got coming. It's all to get through seeker before you guys see the actual resolutions for the bond resolutions. Seeker has to be completed before we issue the bond resolution. So.
Thank you, just.
Okay, any other questions on that?
Yeah.
Would like it.
Take it, Madam President.
Mr. Rautenstrau? Okay, then the next resolution is relative to the Delawanda Storm Sewer Investigation Change Order number 1. Questions on that? Would like it? Sonic? Okay, then our next resolution is authorizing the mayor to execute the contract with Premier Infrastructure and Energy for the electrical utility locating services agreement. Do we have any questions on that?
This. Refresh my memory what the budget line was for this. Didn't we increase this last year?
So this is out of the LED streetlight program.
That's what I thought.
Yes. Any other questions on this? Would like it?
I'll take it.
Mr. Nocera? Okay, then the next resolution is for the plans to make structural repairs and replace the windows at City Hall. Any questions on this resolution? Mr. Reese, this is part of our DASNY grant, correct?
This is to get the DASNY grant, but it's not. Basically, correct me, I believe they didn't have the planning cost built in, so that's why we're gonna use ARPA for this to get the ones so we can actually get the DASNY grant.
Yeah, the windows associated with the DASNY grant. The other part is the issue we've got the water intrusion on the east side by the entranceway. So we're doing seeker again ahead of the bond resolution, which has to go before council. This is the order of things. Seeker has to be done first before you guys see the bond resolution.
Perfect. Any questions on that? Who'd like it? Mr. Armstrong? Mr. Mountain, I just want to come back to you on the previous resolution. That 35,100, that's out of our street lighting budget line.
That's what I figured. Yeah. I knew what you meant when you said that.
Okay.
Thanks.
All right, then the next resolution is to install the active overheight warning signage and make improvements to the existing surfaces on Young Street. Do we have any questions on this? Would like it?
I'll take it. I had the original.
Mr. Nocera? Okay,
And that's coming from
Higgins.
Higgins, right?
Correct.
Correct. There's a lot of money on this
1.2.
agenda.
yes,
Yes.
So I want people to understand where it's coming from.
correct.
Good idea.
Okay, then next is the local law number 1. Do we have any questions on this? We want to do council on this? Everybody council?
Sure.
Local law number 2. Council on this?
Sure.
Everybody good? Questions on this
Yeah.
for the exemption?
Exemption. Yeah. Yep.
Okay. I understand we have exact,
Yeah. Yep. Sorry. I do.
so we'll do that at a later time.
Madam President,
Yes,
just to let you know that with local laws 1 and 2, the next step would be to publish and set the public hearing dates.
you are correct. Okay. Does anybody have anything for informal? Okay, so I'm gonna make a motion to go into a formal session. Do I have a second?
I'll second that, President.
Second by Mr. Rounstrau. No, we have you. I thought we were- The whole reason why we're here.
Yeah.
I take that back. So it's nice to see everybody here. I know many of you are here relative to your reassessment. It was important to us that we devoted a lot of time into this discussion. Just as a reminder, we're still in informal session, so there's no public comment period at this point, but I will certainly let you know when there is opportunity for the public to come up and speak, okay? So with that said, I'd like to introduce to my right, I have Cindy Barr from Gar Associates. Gar completed the reevaluation project. So if you wanted to take a few minutes to introduce yourself, the floor is yours.
Thank you for having me here tonight. I'm Cindy Bear with Gar Associates. I've been with the company for 35 years. I've been doing reassessment projects across New York State for almost all of that time, and Gar's been doing that for 50 years. So we're a Western New York company. We've been in business for over 60 years. We have an office in Albany as well as here locally. Born and raised in Western New York. Went to St. Bonaventure, so I'm a hometown gal and spent my whole life here. So I just wanted to take a few minutes for the council, talk a little bit about the process, what we were contracted for, how it works. This is very typical. This is not an untypical situation. And I also want everyone to know that this project was 100% monitored by New York State Office of Real Property Tax Services. So they monitor all of our projects. They make sure that we're following all the rules and regulations, that they actually tested the roll. When we got finished with our numbers and Katie got finished reviewing them, and they agreed with us and said the numbers were at 100% full market value. That's very important because you don't want to get through these projects and come up short where you spend money and you're not at 100%. The goal is to create full value assessments And therefore, we want to ensure that that happens. GAR has had 100% of our projects certified by New York State in the last 35 years. So they have all been certified. We work very closely with the state. We want to make sure that we're following the rules. We also have what's called Uniform Standards of Professional Appraisal Practice. We have to follow those. My partners are certified by the Appraisal Institute. They have to follow all kinds of rules and regs as far as that goes as well. So having said that, I just want to give you a brief overview of the process. We were charged with creating new full market value assessments. We were not charged with looking at every property for inventory purposes. So the cities, we accepted the inventory that was on the file. Now, even when we do inventory verification projects, inevitably, there's always going to be some error. So we always ask folks that if, to check their inventory, you can check it in the assessor's office, you could check it online. You can, if there's a discrepancy, that's something that you want to bring to Katie's attention. So having said that, we used existing inventory data. So some of you that feel that you have inventory that's not accurate, that's something you want to bring to Katie's attention. So I want to be clear about that. Mass appraisal is not like having a bank appraisal done. Mass appraisal is exactly what it says. It's mass. It's using a valuation model with appraiser review, but it's not like when you have a bank appraiser and the bank appraiser comes to your house and walks through it and, does his due diligence or her due diligence. And this is the value in the range? Is it reasonable based on the sales that have occurred within the city? So that's what we're charged with. That's what the mass appraisal means. As I said, it's monitored by New York State. There's guidelines we have to follow. We used sales within the city. Now, for commercial properties, they're valued on market value and also income. So sometimes they don't transfer and change hands as often as residential properties do. So there aren't as many of those types of transfers within a municipality. We can go throughout the county, we can go throughout the region, especially for like some of your franchise properties, your Rite Aids and things like that, Tops and that kind of stuff. But they are analyzed the sales. Now, one sale doesn't make the market. And we get asked this all the time in our projects, especially of late since the pandemic. This has been an unprecedented real estate market. We know it, we understand it. But Western New York does this with real estate values on the residential side. The rest of the country does this. And it's we finally caught up from a valuation standpoint to the rest of the country as far as where valuations should be. So, the first year of the pandemic, we had projects going and we thought, well, maybe this is an anomaly. It's only going to be 6 months and values are going to go back to what they were. It's been a couple of years and it's continued. And it's not just people coming in outside of the area. It's short supply. It's, desire to live in a certain particular area. So that also plays into this factor. You can talk to any real estate person, they're going to tell you there's no inventory, there's nothing out there. So that's important to keep in mind. But the sales were used within the city limits. We go through a valuation model that's a state computer system. We run all the values, we create new values, and we review them. And then Katie reviews them and goes through them again, and changes are made and tweaks are made and reasonableness and things like that. It's not a perfect system. That's why we offer this informal review time. If you have a challenge, if you have an issue, this is the time to bring it to our attention and let's take another look at it. Maybe there's more information that we didn't have about your property that we'd like to, you'd like to share with us, and we'd like to have you bring that to our attention. So that's important information. The assessor reviews, then everybody got their new notice. So, they're always confusing. Let me just tell you, this is New York State. This is the law. This is what we have to deal with. We have to follow the guidelines of what they ask, require us to do. So it's not like other states where you could change a sale change an assessment at the time of sale. California has that Proposition 15 or 8 or something, and you could change it immediately. Can't do that here. That's called welcome stranger. So you have to look at it at one point in time. So you can't just be randomly changing assessments based on sales. So the informal review is the best time to bring to attention anything that you feel we didn't consider enough, or that we wouldn't been aware of. A lot of interior conditions that we wouldn't know about that you would like us to consider. So it's a perfect time to do that. In a reassessment, you have the informal review period, and you still have the grievance board. So you have 2 chances to challenge that value. But I urge everybody to take the informal step first. It's as it states, it's informal. So have the, conversation, exchange information. Let's talk about it. Let's try and see if we can, reconsider some other factors that we didn't have. So there's been avenues. We have a assessment helpline. Staff is available to help you through the process. And let me just say, for what my staff is telling me, the 99% of the calls have been very nice and very accommodating, very helpful. People were, extremely pleased that they were able to get information and obtain, get some answers. So it's been very typical for us in these types of projects. So it's not been anything out of the ordinary, if I may say that. So you go through the informal process. Some questions we get asked too, well, what inventory items affect value? Things like a flooded basement, cracked walls in your basement. We wouldn't know about that. So we would have to be told that. The city could never afford to send individual people, even if we could get in, nobody lets us in. They see us coming and they're like, they lock the door. But if you have a problem, Katie can do an inspection, she can take a look at it. But if you have interior problems or you need serious upgrading, I'm not talking about just maintenance. If you put a new roof on, you put windows on, you put siding on, that's not a penalty, that's maintenance. But if you have some interior problems that you think would affect the value and you couldn't get, that value for it, that's something we want to know about. Pictures are great. You take pictures and bring, send those in. Those are awesome because it's a wonderful tool. So it's not, as I said, there's always an avenue to discuss and talk about it. So I want to be clear about that. So things like square footage, we've had some questions about the inventory and the square footage. Square footage is measured from the exterior of the property. That's appraisal standards. It's not measuring interior rooms and eliminating closets and stairways. Square footage is your exterior dimensions. If you have a cape, we only take half the story upstairs of the first floor for the second floor. So there's nuances to that square footage. If the city on the inventory record says you have 3 bedrooms and a bath and a half, and you only have 2 bedrooms and 1 bath, that's something you want to bring to our attention. Maybe one of the bedrooms was converted. Maybe somebody did recorded the half bath as a full bath. So you want, those types of things are important. Obviously, that affects value. So you want to talk about that. But the square footage is always going to take precedent. And I always use the example that you could have a 1,500 square foot cape with 3 bedrooms, and you could have a 1,500 square foot cape with 2 bedrooms. You still have 2 really good sized bedrooms, or you have 3 smaller bedrooms. They could sell the same. So square footage is usually, a determinant. Condition, as I said, is important, but it's not, HGTV upgrading. It's, are you maintaining your home? We assume that everybody's normal and average unless we know differently. So we start everybody at that condition level. So that's in part. Garages, do you have one or not? Do you share a driveway or not? Sometimes in the city, you share driveways. You know, that's important, you know, that those are important real estate factors that you want to think about. So, you know, we talked about this unprecedented real estate market. It is, I agree, but we're not seeing this. We're just kind of seeing this now. So the values went here, although I talked to a real estate broker today at lunch, and she said, she had 20 people bidding on this house still. I said, you really? She said, I was surprised. She said, we had 20 offers on this house. So it's still going on in certain parts of the county, but a couple things to remember. Reassessment doesn't raise more tax dollars. I realize a lot of people here tonight, because on that hypothetical notice, they saw an increase. But I have to tell you, there's only one budget, one levy for the town, the city, the school, and the county. No matter what the assessment is, that has to get collected. So whether assessments change or not, if your tax has gone up since the last reassessment, and no disrespect to the council, the taxes go up every year. My assessment doesn't change. How does that happen? So the reassessment is just a redistribution. It's taking that same levy and spreading it over fairly, because everybody's now at the same standard. So that's important to remember. Prior assessments were 65% was going to be your rate this year.
I think it was lower than that.
Lower than that.
Yeah.
So our preliminary number was 65%, but I think it was going to be lower if we didn't go to 100%. Meaning that a house at, you know, that should be $100,000 in value is assessed at 65,000. So what happened? Well, how does that happen? What happens is properties appreciate and depreciate differently. They don't all change the same. I get asked all the time, well, why can't we just apply the same percentage to everybody? Well, that wouldn't be fair, because some people's values aren't going to be raising as high as others, and some people need a reduction. And if we just apply a straight percentage, that's not fair, because not everybody moves at the same level. Last reassessment was done in 2018. The equalization rate at the time was 90. It wasn't 65 or 60 or whatever this was, 90. So roughly values were off 10, maybe 15%. Big difference between now. So that's another factor. The first reassessment that I could see since the 80s, when the county did it, was in 2007, and the rate was about 67, the equalization rate. So similar to now. And between 2008 and 2015, the city maintained 100% every year. So the city's always done something to keep this equity, which honestly, in my opinion, the best thing that leadership can do is to make it fair, because you don't want to have someone else paying someone else's taxes. So this is what we're stuck with in New York State, ad valorem taxes. We have to pay based on the value of our property. That's what the law says. So we want to make sure that nobody pays too much or too little, that you just pay what you're supposed to pay based on the value. So that's the law. That's what we have to work with. Just a couple final things, and I'll take some questions from the council, but we don't want people, I know it's very disturbing when it comes to your property value and your taxes, it's very personal. And we understand, and I don't take it personally. So I like I said, I've been doing this a long time. I honestly, and I say this in all due respect, I really don't care what the value is. I don't care who lives in that house. I don't care. I look at the data and we say, this is what the data is telling us. We don't make it up. This is closed transaction sales, good valid sales that closed. That we just report the data. We don't project, we don't discount, we just say this is what the sales are telling us. So that's important. We're here to help through the process. Katie's been talking to people. I know we talked about this today, and she can certainly expand on this, but she's been talking to residents at her counter, helping them out, printing out information. Her door is wide open. She has a wonderful office and the staff there is terrific. It was a great rapport with the residents. So any questions, she's going to be there to help you out. For everyone that saw this increase, which I'm assuming most of the people that are here tonight, that's why they're here. Somebody else saw a decrease. And I know it's hard to believe, but there's a whole group of people in the city that are very happy because they were overassessed and they didn't know it. And now they're assessed correctly and they're going to see a savings. And that's hard, I know, to kind of fathom. But again, like I said, there's one levy that has to get collected. And people will inevitably ask me, well, I want a refund for all those years that I was overassessed. Well, we don't have a refund. We're correcting it now going forward. We're trying to make it as fair as possible. Budgets and levies determine the taxes, not the assessment. It's just a collection process. It's New York State law, real property tax law, section 305 says all properties have to be assessed uniformly. They have to be assessed the same. So if you have properties assessed at 65 and 35 and 45 and 25, and they're all over the board, nobody's fault, just because of the market, you're in essence breaking the law. So it's there, that is on the books. Everyone has to be assessed. Doesn't have to be 100. New York State doesn't mandate it, doesn't say it has to be 100, but it's the easiest way to understand. You look at that assessment, which is 100% of your value, and you can say, yes, it's worth that. No, I do not believe it's worth that. If it's at a fraction, it's very difficult to kind of determine what that real number is. And also that equalization rate is determined by the state of New York, and they take a sampling and they don't go to every property and put a value on it like this project did. They sample properties and they look at sales and they come up with this average, 65, 60, whatever the rate was going to be. And it applies to everybody. It says everybody's at this value in the city. So someone who should be going down is really going to see an increase at that 65%. And someone who should be going up isn't. And it's for commercial properties, residential, utility properties. It's the best system they have because every municipality can do what they want. They know it's not mandated, so city can do 100% and the town can do something else. And everybody gets to do what they want. So they have to have a way, the state, to bring everybody up to a same standard so they can spread county taxes. In your case, because you have your own school and city, but school districts, huge problem with shared school districts in other towns. They've got to bring these towns up to one standard so they can spread that school levy. So it's a convoluted system. It's very confusing. It'd be better if they mandated it so everybody had to do it, or say every 5 years, like Connecticut, Massachusetts, you got to do it every 5 years, and that's it. And it takes it out of everyone's hands and it's done. It's not. It's New York State. They don't. Everybody gets to do their own thing. And just keep in mind that all properties were reassessed. We didn't select certain properties to be reassessed. Everything, tax exempt properties, utilities, everybody. So everybody got a new fair value assessment. So that's kind of my process.
Thank you very much. Council questions?
I have a quick question.
Sure.
So I just wanted to make it clear for myself and for everybody else here. Because the calls that I'm getting are, mine went up X amount, my neighbor right next door to me went down X amount, how can that be? And that the response could be because they were overpaying prior to. And I don't know if the person who was overpaying,
Right.
and now that this new rate has brought them on equal playing ground, is that
Well, the problem is it'd be great if everybody started out the same.
right?
If everybody had the same value up and down the street.
But that's,
That's not the reality. things happened. They had maybe a building permit, so they're, it had some changes. So maybe their property got reassessed because of those changes. They went to grievance. They had a reduction. They had an exemption that the other homeowner didn't have. So there could be a lot of reasons for that. Not every house is identical and it has the same features. Therefore, the assessments are identical to start with. So you're not starting at the same playing field either.
Yeah, it's just one of the most
It's a common question.
questions.
Yes,
Mine went up by however many it went up. My
Right.
neighbors went down.
Yep.
My house is better, that type of thing. And why did that happen?
Right.
And thank you.
So, oh, go ahead. I have a few questions about the agreement,
okay.
before I get into the process. And in the agreement, it mentioned that the city would provide inventory cards for all parcels. Did you get inventory cards from the city for all parcels?
We did need those. That statement's in there in case we need them for, especially if we're doing a data verification project. That probably was just language that was in there regarding that. But if we ever needed a card or something extra, we were given it.
Okay. So, and I know this is a lot of information to digest. If a resident had a question and felt that their inventory was wrong, the best recourse would be to call the assessor to update the inventory card, correct?
Absolutely.
Okay. Also in the agreement, we had mutually agreed that GAR would provide support services, including field review, public relations, project management, support training, sales verification. Can you tell me what type of public relations that you offered to the residents in the city that was in the agreement?
Yeah, in our proposal, we had certain things like our press releases, the cover letters, the postcard that went out kicking the project off, commercial income and expense mailers. We had a public relations consultant that we did a podcast with Katie. We've done 2 podcasts actually when the former assessor was here. We put together some what you need to know documents. We had a meeting with the staff and the assessor and the treasurer and the clerk. And we talked to the staff about, how to answer questions and talk about that. We wrote the press releases, things like that. There's a lot of variations, and to keep the costs in control, we tried to come up with the most effective budget conscious public relations efforts that we could come up with to stay within the budget that was proposed.
And I know when you and I had spoken, you had said you welcome these one-on-one meetings with residents. Do we have anything scheduled, or how can a resident make an appointment to have a one-on-one?
Well, let's talk about that. I think that Katie's already met with a lot of people one-on-one, just within her office. We certainly would never turn anyone away to have it, but I think I'd like everyone to understand that what happens at these informal meetings can be very frustrating for the resident, because they bring this paperwork, they bring the information, they sit down, they present everything. We can't give them an answer at that moment because we have to go back and do some research. The resident is asking us to go back, consider this data, do another look, and we have to take time to do that. We can't give them an answer on the spot. So a lot of times, in my experience, residents get frustrated. They take the time from work, they bring all their information, they sit down, they explain everything, which is fine. If they want to do that, that's okay. But we can't give them an answer. And then they get, well, why did I come? Why did I waste my time? So pandemic was something very positive came out, that they submitted this information. We Zoomed with them, we called them on the phone, we talked to them, whatever they needed to do. And we kept that process because we heard from our other projects that I didn't have to take time off from work. I didn't have to take a time away from my family. I presented you the information. You did your homework, you went back, you did your research, and it was a much more time efficient for the residents, for sure. It's also reducing cost, because for every meeting we would have, we'd have to spend another, hour or two at the office doing the research. So it ended up costing the municipalities a lot more money for that avenue. So this has worked out very positively, I think. But Katie and I said this from the beginning, that, we never say no. Somebody wants to talk, we'd be happy to talk to them.
So would there be any meetings at the Senior Citizen Center or?
Well, we talked about it, and I think you've been addressing a lot of the seniors individually.
Yeah.
So,
Yep.
I mean, I'm not opposed, I don't know, we could certainly
I-
meet with them.
Right, and that would be the thing for them to also understand. We can't fill out the forms for them.
No, we can't do that.
And, and if that's what they need help with, I mean, I can certainly print the forms. I've printed numerous forms, residents have come pick them up, I put some in the mail.
Right.
If that's, I think, the thing, if,
And I think there's also, I want people to understand, they don't have to fill out this form. It's not mandatory. It's kind of just if you put your name and address and what you think the value should be, that's fine. You're asking us to take another look at, it's best if you tell us why, if they have interior problems or something like that. Don't put zero down, because we know your property is worth more than zero, but, they don't, it's not mandatory. It was kind of a worksheet that helps them just kind of fill out some information.
And I do apologize. I did not introduce Katie Schultz, our assessor. So Katie is sitting to the left of the mayor. Mr. Rostra.
Just a question on that. So the informal process is the informal process. We can reach out to you directly online, by email.
Yes.
A lot of different means. So one, I've heard that the availability by phone is only until a certain time. Are there hours available outside of normal people's working hours that we can get a hold of you? That residents can-
There's a message system and everybody gets a call back. That's 100%. We do that first thing in the morning.
Okay,
If-
but again, if you're only available between
Abs-
7 and 3, can you reach
Absolutely.
out to somebody after work hours if they give you that information?
Yes.
That they're only available after 5 o'clock or 6 o'clock
Of
because
course,
they work their
Of
jobs?
course.
Thank you.
Mhm.
The second question to that is the informal part of it. Do you have to go through the informal process to go to the formal
Oh,
process?
Very good point.
Bar?
No, if you don't want to talk to us, that's fine.
Sure.
That you can go skip us and go right to grievance and go to the.
That would be
grievance
the
room.
formal documentation
Yes.
that they have online. So it could be beneficial to get this.
But I want to be clear that you cannot skip the grievance, the formal grievance, if you want to go to small claims.
Okay.
Because if you don't go to grievance, you can't go on to small claims. That's very important. You can skip the informal. You cannot skip your grievance.
And I guess another one is just to manage people's expectations. We have a crowd here. I don't know how many more people have questions or challenges or want to bring it down. But what is the time frame in turnaround that you said you can't give them an answer right there when they're sitting with you? But what can they expect as a turnaround in time frame?
Very good question. We have a target date of mailing decision notices on or about May 1st. So that you have plenty of time if you want to go to formal grievance. The law says you have to mail those 10 days prior to grievance, but we like to give as much time as we can. And that typically gives us enough time to review, do the informal review, get them back to Katie, get them on the file, get them, a notice generated, and everyone will get a notice regardless of the change or not. So they'll have an idea of if they want to go on.
Is there a ticketing system or something that if somebody calls or gets called back, that they can verify, they can follow up with?
It's kind of not, I mean, the forms, they'd have to go sifting through them. But everybody that files an informal will get a notice. Yeah, for sure.
And my concern is we're kind of hitting this point. It's hitting people's mailboxes. I said there in your podcast, there was a mention of a inventory form sent out or a notice. And, you know, I was remiss. I may or may not have seen that. I don't remember seeing it.
Right,
When I talked about it, I do vaguely remember it. I'm sure it's something I put aside, didn't follow up on. So, you know, I think we're faced right now with the time crunch. You know, this has got to be in by a certain date. Then there's a certain point to get to the Board of Assessment review. It's got to be in. So I think
totally understand.
public outreach is very important at this point to ensure that people are hitting those marks, hitting those milestones and getting that information in.
And that's, you know, that's New York State as well. We have legal deadlines and we have to abide by those. We've got to process all this. So, you know, we have to, if we don't meet that deadline, we're in trouble. So we're kind of bound by a lot of that as well. So,
And main points of contact would be GAR, would be assessor. I just don't want to overwhelm one person with something if it should be in your hands. And just so everybody knows what their responsibilities are and what they're supposed to be doing. I know you said you can't fill out the paperwork for people, but you can make paperwork available. It's available online. And for this part of the process, you don't need to fill out the formal paperwork. It's just a matter of an email, a letter, a phone call, and
Sure.
supplying that
yeah, it's
information.
not mandatory. That form is not mandatory. It just kind of helps you organize the information. GAR is conducting all the commercial informal reviews. So we deal with that directly with the commercials that, you know, file agreements. We take care of those. So, but a lot of it is, you know, unfortunately, the state mandated dates that we have to adhere to.
My fear too is, you know, you see a lot of this on social media, a lot of people reaching out, or somebody pops in, oh, I'm a realtor, I can help out with this, or I'm a company that can do this. I'm assuming that's not recommended. My fear is always that a predatory company comes in here and takes advantages of our seniors, of people that could use the extra help, and they think that they're gonna get this great service from somebody and they could end up being taken advantage of. So I want to
Absolutely.
get your opinion on that, make it clear that that may or may not be the proper procedure.
Everybody can do what they want. I mean, they want to hire a realtor, they want to have an appraiser, that I can't tell you not to do that. However, the informal process is set up for that reason, to be informal. You know, bring your information. If there's a legitimate reason for that value to change, we're going to really consider that. Even for board review, you don't need a formal appraisal. You can just do the form and bring your own data. Small claims you do. You would need an appraiser at that point. But yes, very good point, because there are a lot of tax consultants out, and they will be soliciting, saying, you know, if I save you this, you'll get, you know, I get an X amount of your savings if I win. But they don't win all the time.
And that's why I wanted to make that point out there. Unfortunately, you have to bring it to people's attention. There's people out there that don't have your best interests.
Correct,
So I just want to make sure people are aware of that, make sure you know who you're dealing with.
correct.
And I don't mean to monopolize the conversation,
Good
but
point.
just other questions in regards to how you guys come up with the valuations. I mean, other things, you kind of helped us out with some things that might help somebody challenge it
Mhm.
and decrease it. But I think people are curious as to what affects the value, increases the value of their home. Is there anything to do with location, being closer to the river, being in a neighborhood closer to a school? I think there's a lot of intangible factors that you guys are kind of forced to put a dollar amount or put a value to. So are some of those things factors in that?
We do. The location is very important. Every realtor will tell you, you know, location, location, location. So, but what's important to one person may not be to another.
Some
So,
of that's arbitrary.
Right. So we look at sales within neighborhoods and streets, similar age, similar style, similar, you know, just the neighborhood itself. Is it in a commercial, more of a commercial area? Is it more of a residential area? The school is very important, proximity to that. The river obviously is a whole of itself. So, but we first look at sales that occur in that neighborhood. And use the sales that have occurred in there, because that's why people are buying in that neighborhood. That's why they want to live there. So we're not taking a sale, and no disrespect one way or the other, but from a house that's sitting on the river and using it in a neighborhood that's not on the river. So it's all, we all make the real estate market. We buyers and sellers and what motivates people, I want to live on that side of the street, not this side of the street. So I'm going to pay $5,000 more because I want to be on that side of the street. So those types of things, I can't always, you're absolutely right. You can't always explain it. But we kind of look at a large pool, and you've had a lot of sales activity the last few years. So there's a lot of sales to choose from. And again, we don't take all the high sales and we don't take all the low sales. We kind of do this in between. And I caution folks to not just go out and look for all these low sales and say, well, this sales was sold for this. What I want to be compared to that. What was a fixer upper? It was somebody bought it and they're working on it. They're putting money into it. So be cautious. That's not going to help your case, so something that's normal and average and, within your neighborhood. Listen, and there's always unique circumstances. And we understand that. And we can't see behind the walls of your house from the exterior. So this is the time to bring those things to our attention.
And that's the other point I want to emphasize. You're in a case and you have rules and regulations that you're painting with a bit of a broad brush is how I've explained it to neighbors that I've spoken to. So that doesn't mean that there's not room for change or room for challenge. I mean, one neighbor could be different. It's important to actually get in there and challenge it. It's your house, it's your biggest asset. I think it's important to take the time to make those points. But in that process, I've heard people, well, I need an estimate for this or an estimate for that, or my roof needs to be repaired. I've got to assume that you guys are trained professionals that have been doing for this year. I'm sure there's some sort of algorithm or baseline of, do people have to come in with formal estimates or,
No.
My pool is in disrepair at my house. What's that factor in? Is or my driveway needs to be repaired or my basement?
I certainly would like the estimates because the
Sure.
prices do vary, but
But you should have some sort of baseline
Absolutely.
area that you can factor that in. And if somebody says, no, it's going to cost $20,000 to fix my furnace or replace my furnace, not the 10,000 that you say, that would be kind of the point of coming in to the formal review and saying, okay, these are my numbers. These are the ducks that I have in a row.
absolutely.
So it's not a crunch time of these all have to get in by the end of this month. There's certain things that can be put into place. And if you're not satisfied with them, come the formal review, proper documentation, things to back it up is that's the time to have it all prepared. So
Absolutely.
you have a little more time
Yes.
to do it.
Mhm.
And if things can't get done, and I did say that was my last question, but I was wrong. If things can't get done in a certain process, or if you guys are backed up, is there any room for extensions of this before it's finally applied?
We tend not to, we have a large staff, so we can help Katie get through all these.
That needs to be processed.
Absolutely, but we need to get through them so we can get the decision notices out. So as soon as, like I said, it's not your only opportunity. If you can't get it done, or folks are out of town or something of that, they always can go to grievance. So they have an option.
Thank you.
I know the mayor has a question. I'll turn it over to the mayor.
First of all, thank you for coming. Last time we did a revale was 2018. And a question that was asked to me is, what's the main benefit of doing one, especially when you got a relative that lives in the town of X that hasn't done one in 15 years? I might as well move to the other town because my house I'll get more for the house selling it here, but I won't get taxed high over there.
I take a close look at those tax rates, first of all. My answer is, it's a tough one. And because of home rule and every municipality can do what they want. Municipalities like the city and the other clients that we have that do regular reassessments, you're making it as fair as possible to your residents, because when you let it go, then you have all these inequities and all these gigantic shifts, and it's challenging. And if you keep it up on a more regular basis and you make sure that the levy is distributed as fair as you can get it, that to me is the most important. I'd rather live in a town that does that, because then leadership is thinking about making as fair as possible across the board. I can't speak to what other municipalities do. listen, it's not popular. It's not fun, clearly. So, you know, but the longer you wait, the bigger the impacts, the bigger the inequities, the bigger the shifts. When you make small changes to the role, whether it's annually or every couple of years, you can capture those changes and the impacts are so much less.
So you would recommend doing one again when?
I'm an advocate of annual because you can make changes all the time and they're very minor. And assessments do go down. We did the city of Buffalo in 2000, 2001. We did the city of Niagara Falls in 2002. And I had to lower people's assessments and their taxes went up. So sit across the table with somebody that went down $15,000, $20,000 in their value, and they were paying more in taxes. It was not good, not fun. But we've made adjustments over the years into my annual reassessment clients where we've lowered some people because the market dictated that. But they were minor things that kept it a lot even, more even. Town of Clarence likes to do it every 3 years, that 2-3 years, something around that cycle. Commercial values don't change as fast as residential values. So we do annual for a couple different municipalities, and folks will always say, well, you didn't change the commercials this year. We just got changed. Well, the information, the data didn't tell us there was a change. But maybe 2 years from now, we're going to have to make changes to those commercial values. So that's a bit of a challenge in that regard. Residential properties just change a lot faster.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Questions?
Once again, thank you. Thanks for coming out tonight and
Have my
Oh.
back.
helping us out. No, that's fine. One of the questions I received was, how far back did you go on sales to check comparables?
It was closer to 2 years.
2 years.
Yeah.
2 years. Okay, so another, more of a comment than a question. Residents said that maybe they should have waited to replace their driveway inside the house.
Those are maintenance items.
Okay, so it's maintenance, roofs, driveways, paint,
And
sidings.
if I could,
fences.
yeah, if I
Okay.
could tell you a little funny story. In my neighborhood, when I lived there in Lancaster, I had a neighbor who had these crazy, they're shrubs. They were like swirls. And he came in screaming and hollering, you raised my assessment because of those beautiful shrubs I have. I said, they're ugly. I said, that's your choice of landscaping. It means nothing to me. I said, I leave as my neighbor, so I could say that to him. But so landscaping, maintenance, curb appeal, does that have, of course it plays in when you're selling your house. But we're not, we're not raising someone because they put a new, that's maintenance driveway.
Thank you. And the other one was, what information should they have for the informal? What should they be prepared with for the informal?
As
Is
I
there a
said,
list somewhere that they could look at and make sure that they had those items or the information? the
there
informal?
isn't really a standard list, but as I said, if somebody's got an interior condition issue, if they want Katie to come and walk through it, she can come and walk through it, but you could take photographs, you can include those with the information. If you've got structural damages, we did the town of Amherst, do the client for years, they had all that problem with those sinking basements. So we had to consider all that because there was, obviously some very damaged basements in that northern end of the town. So, but if people have, water running through their basements how would we know that? We would assume everything's normal and average.
Right.
So those types of items would be important too. If you recently listed your house for sale and it didn't sell, bring to the listing agreement. If you recently purchased your house and it's less than what the assessed value is, bring that in.
Okay,
We'd be happy to consider that.
thank you.
And Carl, real quick too, on the residential review form with all the information it asks you for, which again, you don't have to fill out, just a way to keep your ideas organized. It does, ask you to list why you want your assessment lowered. At the bottom, it gives you some examples of what you could bring in. Just like Cindy said, photographs, surveys, If you had a recent appraisal, real estate,
Yeah.
anything like that, yeah.
A lot of realtors will do like these market analysis and that they'll be happy to do those for you. Certainly use that. If you have a realtor friend, you can do a market analysis and include that.
I believe it was from somebody that obviously didn't see that form yet from your office, so.
Yep.
When they get that, they'll have it.
Yeah, the form's on the web, or if
Okay.
they need it printed,
And there's a new website that's up now in the city that has all the assessments, all the sales, all that is public information. Everybody can look at everybody's values and inventory and the sales that have occurred. So that's all out there for everybody.
Do they have to come into the office or print off the internet if they don't have access to that and a printer? Would you be able to mail that out?
Oh, yeah,
To the residents?
I've mailed out
Okay. thank you for
many
that.
already.
My phone staff is mailing out too.
Okay,
So,
good, thank you.
That's good. Any other questions?
I do have one more. I had asked Katie for the information, but can you share kind of statistical data at this point? Overall percentage values of properties, how many might have gone up, gone down, commercial versus residential?
don't have the individual property type breakdowns, but basically, it's funny that most of these reassessment projects, it's somehow the stats hold true. A third go up, a third go down, a third, and I've asked the state of New York, how does that happen? How did that percentage seems to, but pretty much we followed that. There was about I don't know, what we say, about 40% that saw some sort of tax increase on in that notice. There was probably 40%, 40 to 60%, the balance that saw no change or a decrease. So that's probably in general terms, and it's going to change, obviously, through the informal process. There's going to be changes made, so those things will change again. But if everybody went up the same, then we could just apply a percentage and call it a day. So, but they probably is going to change that way.
And the documentation that we received, that was preliminary based on, obviously, the tax rate would be adjusted to
Yes.
accommodate the levy and the share of it. But with challenges in the final roll, there could be a shift in if some people's challenges are successful, some people that have saw reductions may not see as much of a reduction as they saw
Correct.
in the levy.
Correct.
Thank you.
Any questions? If you could, just for everybody who's joining us, go through the timeline. Of when a resident must contact GAR by, when the documentation is due by.
I have the.
Do you have it?
Katie's got it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
So by March 17th, questions, any other information residents are requesting for the phone line. Then is the phone line off after that, or,
It won't be staffed, but you could leave a message and we'll call you back.
okay, and
After
even
that,
at that point,
they
they
can
can
call
call
you.
me and I can get in touch with.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and then all of the supporting documents have to be in by March 31st.
correct.
And that's by email or mail
Right. Or drop off.
or drop off. Yeah.
And then the notices, the decision notices will be on or about May 1st to everyone on the, change or no change, so everyone will have an idea. And then grievance day is when?
May 24th,
May
Wednesday, May 24th.
And the roll is final on July 1. At that point, no changes can be made to the roll except by the courts, July 1st. And then that total assessed value on July 1st will be used to levy the taxes. So that's the final roll.
And then they'll see the first new assessed value on the school bill in September,
Yes,
the county bill in February, and the city bill in April
correct.
of 2024.
So if you get to the formal as of 5/24,
Yes.
And there's still a need to take small claims court. Is that enough time to have that adjusted before 7/1 with backup?
No, small claims comes after.
And it can be
so-
adjusted after the
Yeah, it's
7/1 date.
adjusted after.
Okay.
Yeah, and I think they have to be in by August 1st, small
Yeah,
claims.
yeah, I think it's.
Mhm.
Thank you very much. All right, I'm gonna make a motion to go into formal session. Do I have a second? Mr. Clerk, can you call the roll on going into formal session?
Belanich,
Here.
Nocera,
Here.
Rautenstrau,
Here.
Mylum,
Here.
Cook.
Here, you can stand for the pledge. Pledge allegiance to the flag, United States of America. To the republic which stands one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Please remain standing. As you gather tonight and open our meeting, please take a moment of silence in memory of Jason Arno, who gave his life in the line of duty just 8 days ago. Thank you. Remember his family and in a special way, his wife and young daughter, his team from Engine 2 and all the firefighters. Lovingly lift up the firefighters in our community and all the firefighters around the globe. Daily, they stand ready to lay down their life for each of us. These incredible men and women give their all to protect us. God of all people, we come to you on this day, asking you that you generously shower on them and on their families miraculous blessings of every kind. May God bless our meeting, our conversation, and our agenda. We pray. You may be seated. So communications from the mayor have been ordered and filed. Communications from city officials and correspondents have also been ordered and filed. At this time, I'd like to make a motion that we temporarily suspend our regular order of business to allow us to hear on the record from a representative from GAR, and we allow for the residents to ask specific questions. Do I have a second on that?
I'll second, Madam President.
Second by Mr. Rounstrau. Mr. Clerk, can you please call the roll?
Belanich,
I.
Nocera,
Aye.
Rautenstrau,
Aye.
Mylum,
Aye.
Cook.
Hi. So at this time, I'd like to introduce Cindy from GAR Associates. She's sitting to my right, and to the left, we have our city assessor, Katie Schultz. We are aware that many of you have received a notice relative to your assessment, and we want to allow our representative an opportunity to hear from you and to give a brief presentation. As you know, GAR was the contractor who agreed to complete our reassessment. So Cindy, I know some of this may be repetitive, but if you have anything additional that you wanted to add, certainly you can do so at this time. There are some residents that are joining us virtually. If you wish to ask a question during this period, please raise your hand and the clerk will call upon you, okay? For those residents that are joining us in person, we'll call you up, but I first want to give Cindy another opportunity to.
One thing I just thought about that we didn't talk about was, and most, for those of you who had exemptions on your assessment, you would have seen an increase in that exemption amount. Because certain exemptions like STAR and like, I think you said
Veterans and our senior
and
discount.
senior discount are affected by that equalization rate. So what happens is when you're not at 100%, the state adjusts those exemptions down. So Katie almost yearly would get folks coming in saying, what happened to my exemption? Well, nothing happened to it. It just got adjusted by that equalization rate. So now that everybody's at 100%, those exemptions go up to the maximum amount allowed. So that is a huge factor, because what happens with this equalization rate problem is it keeps deteriorating exemptions when your assessment doesn't change. So it's another benefit to to full value, because you get back to 100% of those exemptions. So I just wanted to say that.
Okay, thank you. If you're ready, we can
Sure.
turn it over to
Yeah.
the residents. Okay. So for those that are joining us in person, if you'd like to ask a specific question, please line up.
Do you mind if I sit down?
I just want to make sure I get your address and everything on the record.
Daniel J. Kakar, 106 Mullen Street. Anyway, my concern is that today I was at CNBC and the Fed chairman said that he's gonna boost up the interest rates more than he anticipated because of inflation staying as high as it is. CNBC reported today that record mortgage defaults, line of credits, and credit cards. Credit cards are an ultimate high that's ever been in the United States. My concern is with these astronomical amounts, they always do these reassessments when we're at a high. They never do them when we're at a low, like after 2008, and we went in this big low and we never got reassessed. It's always at a high. So I'm concerned. I love the city of Tonawanda. I've invested over $1 million in Mullen Street, buying foreclosures, fixing them up and selling them to some great people. So I'm concerned that we're gonna stretch ourselves too high up, and then people in this community might not be able to pay their taxes or their mortgages or their lines. That's my concern, because we are a poor community, whether we like to admit that or not. And we have to take that into consideration when we do these things. I'm so confused. I had asked, multiple people, they've actually reached out to me, some of the council people that used to be on the board. They had said it was $43 last year per thousand. So that's the case. Last year, I paid about $7,800 for my mother's house. It's 88 Amsterdam Street. So my question is, will that stay the same this year? Will it be $43 per thousand? Because if that's the case, they took me from $208,000 to $345,000, which to me, I knew that I was going to get reassessed. I was going to get higher assessments, which I agree with. The other two properties that I own on Mullen, I'm not going to argue those. I agree with those ones. I think they're fair. But for down the street here, I know of a house, a friend of mine, I won't say his name. He's assessed at $302,000. He's got a river view, beautiful, beautiful house overlooking the river. I don't have that. I got a school that's going to close in Mullen School. We don't know what's going to happen with that school, how long it's going to stay empty. God forbid it's like the junior high, it stays empty for a decade or longer. I'm concerned. There's rats in my neighborhood. You can go down Mullen Street, you can see the rat traps all the way around those temporary school classrooms that they put in for the, I think, fifth graders, maybe sixth graders, I'm not quite sure. So, and there's a house that's been empty for the longest time that's got just trash strewn about and rats come in there. My brother just had his car wires eaten. He had to take his car to Gary's over here and have the wires replaced because of a rat. And we're trying to kill these damn things, and I don't have nothing around my house. I keep them clean. I try to keep them nice. In fact, my other house I live in, 106 Mullen, all I did was paint it, put some windows on and a new roof. And I went from $97,000 to $225,000, which I'm not gonna argue that because I kind of agree where they're at. But just take into consideration, when you guys make these decisions, we're from 78% to 100%. That we're a poor community. We are. I mean, whether we like to say it or not, I love the fire, I love the police, and I love the DPW. I don't want to lose any of them. I understand we need to get revenue to be able to keep all these guys and everything, but just taking consideration that, it's gonna get costly around here. And, I can go to, I'll give you an example here.
So, Mr. Kinkar, I just want to make sure everybody has an opportunity to, and I'm trying to follow your question, so Cindy answers it.
All right, well, then my question is, it's not so much for her, it's more, I know how to fight the process. I learned she was very informative. My question is for you guys, what is our per thousand going to be? So I know what I'm going to be paying. I'm confused as all heck. That's my question. We have like an estimate, is it 42, is it 43? Because if I'm going to be paying, let me just say this here real quick. If I got a house that's going to be $345,000, and if they're telling me that I got to pay $43 per thousand, then that means I'm going to be paying $14,835 for the year. That's an increase of $7,015 for my one house. I got an increase total of $15,210 for three houses. Everyone's increased, if that's the case, and I'm concerned that I'll even be able to afford to live here anymore.
So, I'll defer to our city treasurer on that, but obviously, once we get the mayor's budget, we'll have the tax rate and the tax levy. And that will come in October, and that's when the council gets to work.
One more question, though. It's at 100%, will that whole $345,000 get taxed at that $42, $43, if that's what it's at, or no?
It depends on what the county, city, and school tax rate is.
Well, do we have a roundabout anywhere, or no?
I learned long ago never to give roundabouts.
All right, well, I understand that, but I'm just concerned, because I don't know how the hell I'm gonna be able to pay all this. I mean, it's a lot of money to come up with. I mean, you're talking double the amount I paid last year. I paid $7,800. Now they're asking for another $7,000 on top of it.
But I will give our city treasurer a plug. He does a roundtable regarding the budget. I believe the next one's in a couple of weeks, so I would certainly encourage you to participate in that.
I just hope that you guys realize that we're a poor community and you guys take that into consideration.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Kinkar. Any questions?
Would you like to move the mic out or?
Sure.
I'm guessing more people are gonna pile in. Want me to read my name for the record? Is this the formal?
Please.
Sure. Christopher Fisher, 413 Main Street. I have a question either to the Gar Corporation or whoever would like to answer it. One of the half truths that we keep being told is the assessments don't raise our taxes. But to give a rough number to these people, so like if I go on the podcast, you guys want to use simple math and simple numbers. If I have $100,000 house at 5% tax, I pay $5,000. But you guys are gonna do us a huge favor. You're gonna lower our tax rate to 3.5%. We're gonna go down 1.5%, but you're gonna double my assessment to 200,000. Now I'm paying 7,000 in tax. So yes, my tax went down, but I'm giving you $2,000 more out of my pocket. It's a sleight of hand trick. It's a half truth. You're shaking your head no, but explain it to our pocketbook. I mean, right? Am I not saying this right? Okay. I do have a question. I have 3 questions for the Gar Corporation. I could make them yes and no's if you'd like, but you can expand if you want. I already filed for my informal, but after hearing what you said, it was very informative. Can I add an addendum to that?
Of course.
Okay. Second one was we were writing down what you were saying. When we were talking about overassessed and underassessed, you said regarding the overassessed, some of those people went down and they were happier. And you said that's because now they're assessed correctly. Is that a subjective statement based on you and your company, or is that an actual statement that would hold true that if we hired another company, they would come out and do the exact same assessment and they would get those exact same numbers? Or would theirs fluctuate a little bit and your company and their company would be apples and oranges?
They would have to use the same models we use and have to follow the state guidelines. And, with the appraiser review, they'd have to be within that threshold statistically. However, what I meant by that statement was somebody may have been overassessed previously at that 65% and not know it because they thought, oh, my house is worth more than $75,000. But they were probably a little overassessed at the time. Nobody's fault, just the way the market is. And they were probably overpaying because for all the people that are here, I'm assuming that had an increase in that taxable estimate at that notice, there's a whole bunch of people that saw a decrease. Because again, there's only one levy that has to be collected. So not everybody's assessment, even though it went up, is going to be paying more.
So that is a subjective statement then that they were now assessed correctly, is your opinion. That's not an official statement. Because I can hire company A, I hire company B.
Absolutely.
Okay,
You
so
can
that's
hire
a
10
subjective
different,
statement.
you can hire 10 different appraisers and get 10 different answers.
And then my last question is, does your company do this out of the kindness of their heart to come around and assess cities for us? Because I read that we paid $115,000 to your company, and you said I'm an advocate for annual when the mayor brought up that we haven't done this since 2018. So I just find it highly questionable that a company that gets paid over $100,000 to do an assessment now says, hey, we should be looking at doing this annually. Now, is that because we're going to be paying you guys
You
$100,000?
can do it on your own. You don't have to, no, you don't have to use me.
I don't believe we used you guys in 2018, and I believe that your company was also in Cheektowaga when they had the same thing with the people out the door with these assessments were skyrocketing.
Yeah.
Okay, I just want to make sure. Okay, thank you so much for that. I'm done.
Thank you, Mr. Fisher. Next.
Year 44-6. I have 3 questions to answer the floor. I understand this respect that it was not a great that did this assessment. It was trained professionals. 6 months training. Please correct, did the appraisers do this?
Yes,
They oversaw,
yes,
they looked at every property.
yes.
Okay, because I was told that it was a trade professional, but that's okay. So please explain why actual comps used to support market value are not on the pros website that citizens were given to help understand and if appropriate challenge. And if these comps can be added to save time instead of requesting via form. So what I was told was, you don't like your assessment, go to the pros website, see what they use. I did. The sale prices were lower than mine for sales comparison, and the assessment comparisons were for single families rather than a two family. So when I called GAR today, they said, oh yeah, the comps used are not online, they're not on that website, they're on ours. So how is a citizen, speaking in memory of my parents, don't have the paper, how does the regular citizen look
No,
online?
all the sales are on the computer.
Right,
But the
but
actual,
not what you use.
because the formula that in the state's system that Katie has in her office has a different formula. It doesn't generate the same information. So, because it's in a model, it's very complex, but if you want a list of the sales that we compared you to, you can have those.
So they're not online for the general public.
They're online, but
In
you
the next
can't,
3 weeks.
you can't generate them as our system
Okay,
generates
that's
them.
what you use to-
But you can ask for them. Oh,
Okay,
absolutely.
I did, thank you. And the last quarter of, I've been in real estate market for more than half that.
Mhm.
Last quarter of 2022, especially now, the real estate market has changed. I understand you did this. I think we're more getting to like this, or,
Mhm.
you know, can someone challenge these comps? Because you're using it, from what I understand, June 2021 to July 1st, 2022.
Mhm.
The market dropped off last quarter of 2022. If I come to a challenge with sales at the end of 2022 to present, will that be taken into consideration? Because that would be fair. That's market value.
Here's our problem. I would use them personally
Right.
because it's current.
Yes.
We've got this July 1st date that the state of New York says we have to value everything as of July 1 of 22. Meaning we're not supposed to look at
So
sales.
we're not going to use market value, however, a bank would use market value.
I'm with you. I totally agree with you, but we have to value as of that legal date. But
So last year,
you can bring those sales in for your informal if you want.
but we're not going to consider them.
We do.
Okay, I'm not being disrespectful.
Oh, no, I'm telling you that,
The whole information.
well, for the
Thousands in the business.
For the initial notice, we have to use them up to July 1. But for your informal, you can bring them.
Thank you.
Yes.
I'm sorry for being.
No, that's fine.
And lastly, I know bank appraisals, like I said, have no leeway, but for when I did challenge my parents years ago and for a friend, we won, but there was a leeway of 15%. So we could still be over assessed 15% because it's a leeway of error. Is that still in? Like,
It doesn't,
I'm not making that one up. because
I'm not saying you are, but I don't know.
So basically, because I know there's a. law.
If we accept that appraisal value, that's it. That's it. That's going to be the value.
Well, we're not, I mean, I can pay for an appraisal.
No, but I'm saying theoretically, yes.
But I mean, if someone came in with low comp, medium comp, and high comp,
Mhm.
are you gonna pick the medium and then the other 50% for leeway of error? Or what do you do?
I don't think there's a big factor in the leeway of error. If you bring in a decent appraisal that's got a good value on it,
Okay, because I specifically remember.
Well, it wasn't me.
No, and I'm not saying.
no, I don't, but
So,
yeah.
But, so basically, last question, do you go by low sales, median, or, and I'm not being disrespectful, I'm pretty comfortable, I think I have.
No,
challenge.
we have to look at all of them, and there might be a reason for that low sale that might not be as comparative to yours, but we'll consider all of them. Absolutely.
Thank you.
You're
Yeah.
welcome.
Madam President, can I get the individual's name and address for the record, please?
Yes, it's Penny Sear, 44 Simpson.
Thank you.
Mr. Clerk, are there any residents who are joining us virtually?
Oh, we have about 50 people on here.
Okay. Has anybody raised their hand?
Thermodynal instincts. When's there supposed to be?
Okay, all right, we have a comment on the floor. Come on. Oh,
I just wanna.
okay, so please speak into the microphone.
I just want to ask, I called Gar Associates this morning,
I just need your name and address for the record.
Kim D'Amico, 300 Fletcher. And I asked for the comparable sales. She said I'd have it at the end of today's business. I still haven't gotten
I
it.
apologize.
So how long does it take?
I'll make sure you get them tomorrow.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
The other thing is my house is built in the 1870s. How in the hell did you raise and figure my assessment was gonna be over $117,000 additional? I could get $202,000 for my home? I don't think so. So how? There's been no house sales at all in my area that went over 200,000 or even 150,000.
Well, we'll have to look at the comps. I don't have it.
I want that email, please.
Okay.
Thank you.
Ms. D'Amico, I just want to make sure that Cindy gets your email. So just before you leave, if you could write it down on this piece of paper. Yes.
Brad Fremont, 160 East Niagara. So my house is recently reappraised, comparable homes in my neighborhood are 160-ish. You came up with 200 for me, which I would love to get. That would be great if I went to market and I got 200. Next door to me, there's an apartment building, 6 unit, all right, so commercial property, right? They're getting revenue from that building. They're making money on it. And it's twice my footprint, twice the square footage. All right, you have it at 250. In 2019, it sold for $395,000. What model did you follow for that? And better yet, can I have the guy that came up with that, or gal? Can I have them do mine? Because I would love to be at 63% of what it sold for 3 years ago.
That sale might have had some other things.
Yeah, it was sold for $1 on the record.
Yeah,
But you say it needs to be fair and equitable so that we all pay our fair share. Now, 160 for me might be fair. And I will work with you. I will go through your hoops and all that stuff to try and get to that number. Now, what about this number that you have a complete fail on? You are well short. How are you going to address that?
I can't address
Because
this.
they are not paying their fair and equitable share.
I don't have the specifics in front of me. I can't answer
So
that.
you don't know, drop the ball.
Well, I don't
We should do
know.
this every year.
I don't have the data in front
No,
of me.
what mechanism is there to get this corrected? They are way undervalued. And it seems like they're undervalued and I'm overvalued. It feels like to me, from my perspective, not feels like it is, I'm carrying their burden. Is that fair and equitable?
I don't have the information, sir, to
No, I'm
answer.
asking if it's fair.
I can't answer you on that value. There might be some condition to that. I don't know.
No, I'd like to share.
Okay.
Hello.
Hi.
Elizabeth Olga, 65 Cleveland. So I think what I'm hearing, because what I'm confused about, you went through the process, but there's gotta be. I scrolled through all the data. This is what really bothers me. And I think everybody has kind of hinted towards it. Base value that I could find, minus a few outliers, was 120,000. Right? So I couldn't find anything lower than that. So to me, in my head, I don't know how to ask the question, but to say, did a human actually go through each property or did you use a computer algorithm to do this? That's my first question.
You start with a model and then they're reviewed by an appraiser.
You keep saying a model. What is the model? Because to me in my head, it's an algorithm, yes?
It's RPS system that the state of New York has. It has a valuation model in it, for residential and commercial properties. And they run a predicted value that has to then be reviewed.
So for me, who knows nothing of this RPS system, what, because, and I talked to the mayor today and I said this, it seems you took a number, not you, I'm not saying you, your computer took some baseline, whatever that, what we like the median, so we took that middle number here in the city of Tonawanda And then we added, in my case, it's not even mine, it's my mother's, I'm here on behalf of my 72-year-old mother. 110%. So in my head, I tried to figure out like, how is it possible? Percentage wise, and quite frankly, I'm not here because of her tax bill. I'm here because it's a crazy amount for anybody, 110%. And as I'm scrolling through this list, trying to see if I challenge this for her, which I shouldn't have to, but according to the phone call I made with your pushing the button 5, I was told that essentially GAR wants relatives to do this for the senior population, which I did. I think it's absurd. I think it's absurd. So I strike it. That's how my brain works. But anyways, that's all I could figure is that your computer system threw these numbers out there. Let's see what sticks. Let's put it to the taxpayer to figure it out. You challenge it. That's what it feels like. Well, you shake your head, but there's no you have mass valuation. I listened to your podcast last night. I was shocked to see them. I never received a postcard. My inventory is wrong. I've talked to my neighbors, their inventory is wrong. I'm wondering, how do I find a comparable when your inventory is wrong? You want me to look up a house, and I'm not saying you, so please don't take it as you. This process wants me to look up a house that doesn't exist in my world. And if it did, I wish I could find the 4 bedrooms so I didn't have to share a room with my siblings, because it doesn't make sense to me. Where did this information come from? And it's not you, because I believe the assessor's office has the inventory. Someone put it in there. How much of that inventory is wrong? So when you run your, what do you call it, RPS? When you run your system, I could tell you my whole street's wrong, right? What's weird is talking to people who just bought a house. The listing was wrong. Because is it possible the assessor's office inventory is wrong, which now jacked everybody's sale up because it's wrong? Does that make sense to me? So my question is, according to Dave Morano, I listened to all 3 podcasts and it was very informative. He referred to it as a mass valuation, right? So are you familiar with the algorithm the program uses to come up with all these numbers where we're not seeing anything lower than 120? My house is listed right now on Zillow at 101,000 under wrong inventory. So
I just want to tell you, your time is almost expiring, so I just want to make sure Cindy has an opportunity to answer your question.
So I guess my question is, I've heard everything you said, but you have not explained how that system actually gave that starting point. How did it throw out these numbers where mine's 110% increase and someone else's is different? Does that make sense? And if you don't know the answer, then you don't know the answer because you didn't write the algorithm.
Do know the answer, but it's a very complicated valuation model. And it takes each parcel, each property, your inventory, whatever's on the file, and it goes and looks for sales that have
See the
similar.
problem. Does everyone sitting at this table see the problem?
I just want you to have,
I heard what she said, Jenna. She said it based on inventory. If the inventory in the city of Tonawanda is wrong, everyone's assessed value is based on wrong.
Okay.
And if you guys don't get that, what do we do then? Let me ask you this. What is the process? We go to the comptroller, we all get a petition, and we now have a lawsuit against the city of Tonawanda because it's the it's assessor's inventory. So I'm gonna suggest.
we have one meeting. No, I wasn't referencing you. There's just a lot of chatter in the back. We have one meeting going on. I just want to be respectful of the person speaking. Go ahead.
I'm going to propose that the council make a motion to do an inventory audit of the city of Tonawanda. And I'm going to say this right now, if it's wrong at a rate of more than 50%, the assessment needs to be redone. You can't use a system that's using the inventory that is wrong. It's wrong. Make sense?
Yes. Okay. Anyone?
Madam President, I do have a comment by an individual on the Zoom call.
Okay, I will turn to you after this gentleman speaks.
Thank you.
Joe Palaka, 164 East Niagara. One question, which I think this gentleman was trying to ask somebody back there, but it really didn't come out clear. City takes in I'll throw out just $5 million here. I don't know what we've taken for taxes. When we get through with the evaluation, if the budget is the same, would it still be $5 million a year?
Yes.
That is not changing.
Correct.
Okay, the other question, Cindy,
Mhm.
you said, and I don't hear well, so I might be wrong.
Okay.
The approximately how many percent went up and stayed the same? I think, did you say 47?
About 40% saw a change in their tax dollars, increase. About 40 saw no change, and about 20 saw a decrease.
Okay, because I originally heard like, I'm going back 45 years or
Yeah.
so. First evaluation, obviously, they said 1/3 would probably go up, 1/3 would probably come down, and 1/3 would stay the same. Is that what you have basically?
It usually works. I mean, sometimes obviously
it's-
there's a little variation.
Or box,
Yeah.
but that's approximately what.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. Mr. Clerk?
Thank you, Madam President. I have a comment by Lisa on the Zoom call.
Go ahead.
Good evening, all. My name is Lisa Ellers, 386 Adams Street. Couple questions. We've been talking about the algorithm and the comparisons. I took the time the other night to sit down and pull up sales using obviously the online sales department type of thing with all the different properties. Sales from our region for the last 3 years. I went around the house in my neighborhood, looked at all the sales in the area that I live on, within about a 3-block, 4-block radius, couldn't go farther than that or we would have been in the river. And almost every house that I had to compare it to was 300 to 500 square feet larger than mine, which is one of your big factors in the beginning when you were explaining how you figure out some of the valuation. Also, the ages of the house I looked at were all comparable to mine. And every single one but one was lower than what my new assessment has come in at. My assessed value, I know you said in the beginning, a lot of people didn't want to talk about what their assessments were. People were talking about their assessments all over social media. They've been posting their assessments, what they were and what they are. And it almost seemed like the pattern of people that were under 100,000 in assessed value last year doubled minus about $2,000. People that were over 125,000 doubled minus about 4,000. That was one of the big patterns that was showing up. How in just a short amount of time, obviously we know the housing bubble right now is ready to pop. We are way over top of it. I know people that just bought their house 2 years ago at 20,000 over market. Their new assessment is that 20,000 over what the market was 2 years ago and another 60,000. All of these valuations are all from this area. You don't value something that has been depreciating over time 100% higher than it was the year before. The numbers just don't add up. So if you look at the sales in the area, they do not line up anywhere near what the new assessments line up. I looked at mine and I looked at a couple of my friends in the areas also. Same basic pattern, almost a double increase and not in comparison with what was actually listed in the sales for the region. That's quite concerning. So my question is, for this algorithm, did it take into consideration our region, our ages of our houses, or is it just a standard, well, it's been sitting here, we can increase this a little bit because the market says so, but it doesn't seem like it's subtracting. It just, they don't line up. Thank you very much. Your questions and answers, everybody, have been fantastic. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Did you want to comment or?
Well, all I can say to that is, again, without looking at specifics, if the valuations, the new values were so far off and weren't, and I'm not saying they're all perfect, I'm not saying that, but in total, the state of New York would not be in agreement with us that we're at 100% evaluation. They would say, you missed the mark. So we have to run on top of our own statistics to prove that we've met full market value. The state of New York runs their own, and they have to validate it and say, yes, we agree that these are at 100%. Not every individual, there's individual circumstances, which is why we have the informal review time to make adjustments. So we understand that. There's nuances to all of it. And we just want to get to the right value. We want to make it, it's really reasonable and equitable as best as we can. And that's all we're trying to do. And if statistically it did not meet 100%, we wouldn't be sitting here. We'd be in trouble. So, as a whole. So that's all I wanted to say.
Thank you so much. Anyone else?
Madam President, I have 2 comments, and I also have someone else that wants to make a question.
Okay, Mr. Clerk, I will come right back to you.
Thank
My
you.
name is Sandra Cunningham, I live at 148 Grove Street. I own 2 properties in the city of Tonawanda, and one of them is a rental, and I am power of attorney for my old son who's employed Army service. Being rented.
Could you just speak up so everybody in the back can hear?
It's actually on.
Yes.
I don't know. Yes, it's red, that's why it's the problem. So I'm here to fix the point.
Better about that.
They can put it into the other taxes.
Dave, you can give her this.
That's not on, okay, I'll try to talk now.
Can I come up to this one?
Yeah, come on
I
up.
can do that, okay.
I don't know if it'll reach. Yeah.
Okay, my name is Sandra Cunningham, I live at 148 Grove Street. I have 2 properties in the city of Tonawanda. One is a rental that I own. The other one is being rented and belongs to my son, who I'm power of attorney for. He's a deployed United States Army surgeon.
Thank you to him for his service.
You're welcome. Actually, I got a couple of them, but basically, I'm not even sure if what I really have is a question. One of my houses did more than double in taxes. I know things are gonna go up, that's the way. And sorry, not a big fan of technology. And I think that's why all these problems are happening. Because the one house that I have that's a rental where it doubled is next to an extremely noisy bar. Property line goes across the driveway, so I don't technically own the driveway, which I'm sure wasn't taken into account. And I have high hopes that that's probably gonna go down. I find this whole process though to be extremely impersonal and cumbersome. A very cumbersome thing on the taxpayer. And for someone who's struggling or has to work a lot, they might just let that go. Also, I want to point out like a humanitarian issue about this is that I'm not even raising the rents of the people. I can't. They are on, a lot of them have limited incomes. I have handicapped people living in some of my places. One of the girls is struggling and working fast food. So I just can't see it. And I with him that it's that's what we have as a poor community. And I am actually wondering how this is going to affect the rents for some people. You know, I mean, and what the percentages of people who actually rent in this city. That, so I don't know. I guess I just wanted to bring that up and I don't know. This just feels like I expect things to go up, let me say that. But you kind of expect them to creep up. You don't expect the city to hide behind a bush.
Yes.
And like just whack you over the head. And if this goes through at my one place, we are talking more than double. More than double, I think by how many hundred, said, but you know, it will either manage or leave the state. I hate to say that, but I'm sure there's a lot of other people in the same situation. I don't want to. And I feel like, my husband's a nurse, my son's a farm tech, I run a business over my computer. This is the people you're gonna lose, like you'll lose good people. And, I'm not saying, oh, don't tax. I know we're gonna do that, but I feel like I actually want to take some tea and go over to the river and like start a revolution or something, because we're just totally taxed. I mean, between everything the state's doing to us and plus, I'll point out one more thing, my son's house was trashed over COVID by people I couldn't evict. So, you've got all these burdens on you, and then this comes out right after COVID. And then you talk about doing it once a year, that seems, I really have to go through this cumbersome process once a year, where I'm being taken away from my family and my business and things I could be doing. For me, time is one. So, and that's all I have to say, and I am saying it as respectfully as I can. I'm a really straightforward person, so I don't know how it's coming across, but.
Thank you. Did you want to comment on?
I just wanted to say that the only reason I said the annual is to your point, very much so. The increases can be mitigated because you can tweak those and it could be a couple of percentages. When you wait long periods of time like this, that's where you get these large increases. So I've just seen it work well in other communities where you can make these minor adjustments as opposed to waiting 5 or 6 years and then having to go through this. So that's my point with the end.
Thank you.
I'm with you, and we have been asked that across the state, but there's no law for that on the books to allow us to do that. So, okay.
So now I'm going to turn it over to the clerk. Mr. Clerk?
First couple written questions. Again, for clarification, it says the new tax levy will be in October, but it's actually going to be the September school tax bill, correct?
Correct.
And the assessments will be locked in on July 1st.
Correct.
Okay, the next question is, is there a number for GAR that they can contact?
Katie, you have a
Yep.
866.
Yep, it's on the cover letter that was mailed with the change of assessment. It's 1-866-910-1776.
Thank you, Katie. And can they get an inventory? Or if they call that number, can they get their inventory of what was used for their comparisons?
So they can call me, I can get the inventory if they're requesting what their own inventory is. I think that was the question.
I'm not
Or-
sure.
Yeah, they can either call me or look on the website that will show the inventory. And if they have a dispute with that, yes, they can also call me. We can check the property folder. And if there's a difference in that, we would have to see, every situation's different. So, but yes, they can call me as well.
Okay, thank you. And then the other comment I have is someone from the Zoom call. It's an iPhone. I don't have any other information. But go ahead and ask your question.
If you're talking, you're muted.
Okay, I'm not sure if it was me that is trying to zoom in, but Jerry Hill, 135 Franklin Street. I'm looking to see if you GAR had charged $115,000 or $150,000. I can't remember what the number was for the city to be reassessed. So this is going on based on the data that was given to them for the inventory. So if they went and everybody complained about how their assessments way over, is the city going to be charged more for looking at all this data? That's a lot of people going around looking at properties and all the, it's a lot of work.
I believe the 150. thousand includes the informal sessions as well as the
But it-
challenge process.
He's talking about the inventory review.
Oh, if we,
Yeah.
that would be an additional cost,
Yes,
yes.
that would be an additional cost, absolutely, but, you know, I can find it hard to believe that everyone's inventory is wrong. There might be some, you know, some inconsistencies that we can help work through and hopefully resolve.
Not so
But,
much as the inventory, I'm sorry to interrupt, not so much as the inventory, but the assessed value. Mine went up $83,000 and I don't agree with it. So somebody's gonna have to come out and look at it, or we're gonna have to fight it. Or, you know, it all takes time. And people to look at it, it's gonna cost the city more money. Is that right?
No, this informal process, you know, through, up until Board of Assessment Review is covered under that contract. That's covered. And just, you know, just for the public's, information. Typically, we run between 8 and 12% for informal hearings, informal reviews. So there's 6,700 parcels, something like that. That's a typical informal review rate. The state of New York usually estimates 15 to 20% when a project hasn't been done long. Ours usually run less than 10% of challenges. So, so while, you know, I respect everybody's concerns that have spoken and you know, I understand where you're coming from. There are people out there that are satisfied. So just.
Or they're too busy to actually do what you're asking them to do, and that's what I think is being failed to be recognized.
Well, they don't know how to.
I just want to make sure we get comments on the record. Are there any? Yes,
Thank you.
thank you, Mr. Hill.
Mayor, Madam President, I still have one person, it's an iPhone. If they can unmute themselves, they have one, that's the only final question I have.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Clerk.
Go ahead. They just unmuted.
Yes, my name is Angela Barrett. My address is 219 Gibson.
Thank you
And
very
my
much.
question is it normal for your assessment to double living across the street from the Tonawanda Housing Authority? Just wondering how you value our house at $200,000, living directly across from the Housing Authority.
As a project, in case you were wondering.
Oh, I know. Again, you know, there were sales that supported that value. If you feel that you couldn't get that because of your location, that would be something you'd want us to reconsider.
Thank you. Mr. Clerk, we have a comment on the floor.
Hi, I'm Lindsay Neal. I'm 92 William Street. I just had a few quick questions. The first one was, would sufficient evidence showing that the appraisal was over $70,000 wrong, okay with the 2021 bank appraisal? Would that be sufficient enough to show my just cause, or would I need more than that?
We would definitely take that in consideration. Yes, you could bring that.
Because I have that, but if I need to show more, I don't want to submit something and then, oh, I missed the cutoff because I submitted information and no one got back to me.
No. Everybody will get a response.
Okay, so no matter what you submit, you will be responding to them before the
Yes.
cutoff deadline?
Yes.
Okay, and then the second one is those of us that have the veteran discounts for our mortgages and our homes, will that be prorated along with our new tax increase? Because that applies to my home, and that's a very big concern, and it's important to me, and it should be
Exemption
for every other vet in here.
For the exemption or?
Yes. We get discounts on our taxes for being veterans.
Those will go right up.
So I'm not sure what your question, is, but yeah, and we just raised the veterans limits also.
Right.
So ultimately, and I'd have to actually look at your house to see what, you know, you were at last year compared to this year. But my guess is you're probably getting more value from your veterans exemption in the next tax roll.
Right, which will at the same time is what I mean, like they're gonna coincide with.
So it'll start with the school bill in September.
And your
with your
exemptions will be applied.
exemptions will be applied to that in the new value.
At the same time.
Yes.
Yeah, yep. If you want to call me tomorrow, I can look and tell you.
All right, so submit pictures with that?
The
appraisal then?
bank appraisal is all you need, really. A copy of that with, yeah, that's fine.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Mrs. Neal. Mr. Clerk? Did you have,
Madam President, I don't show anyone else indicating any comments at this time.
This is Jerry Hill again, 135 Franklin Street. I do have a question. So on my assessment, it says that it's a two-family residence when we bought it from my mother-in-law and it's now a one-family. Is that, if we change that over to a single-family home, is that assessment go down?
Not necessarily, but you would want to get that inventory corrected, and then we could rerun a value for you.
Okay, and how would I do that?
You want to get a hold of Katie in the assessor's office so we can change that inventory. Okay,
All right, thank you.
you're welcome.
thank you, Mr. Hill. Mr. Kankar?
Yeah, Daniel J. Kanker, just one more statement. If this goes through its current form, you're gonna see the depth of the city of Tonawanda. I pray and hope that you guys evaluate this whole situation and rethink of what your number is gonna be and consider that we are a poor community. Because you can live in Clarence, Williamsville, Akron, Tonawanda, and they're all cheaper per thousand than here. So why would I live here? So you guys think of that, because you guys will have it on your conscience that you killed the city of Tonawanda. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Kankar. Anyone else have specific questions on their assessment?
I just got a comment.
You just want to,
Oh, no, I understand. My name's Jay Cunningham. I live at 148 Grove Street. And basically what I want to say is we have the three properties in the city of Tonawanda. We're going to theoretically, according to their thing, we're going to be paying $1,000 a month. $1,000 a month in taxes. That just seems outrageous. Just to live in the city of Tonawanda. Seems outrageous.
thank you. Any other comments?
Madam President, I do have one comment from the Zoom call.
Okay, I'll come right back to you.
Thank you.
My name is William Garnham. I live at 312 Morgan Street, city of Tonawanda.
If you could just, sir, if you could just speak into the microphone, I just want everybody in the back to be able to hear you.
Yeah. William Garnham, I live at 312 Morgan Street, the city of Tonawanda. And my assessed value is $197,000 for one family house. And it needs work. I had to put a new roof on the house. And a flat roof because it was leaking and it ruined my ceiling, so I gotta get the ceiling fixed. And I have, with the wiring and everything else, I still have fuses. I have to have that done. And I don't even have a sump pump because I never had one. I've been living there like 40 some years and I never had a sump pump. And either people on each side of me put sump pumps in, and they're always complaining about flooding in their cellars, which I don't have any trouble with that, but still, if I want to sell the house, I'm gonna have to put a sump pump in. So like I said, with the roof, and I gotta do other things in the house, like, you know, like the wiring and everything else, because it's, you know, it's like over 100 years old. So I was just wondering, last year I was paying, the assessed value was 98,000, now it jumped up twice. And I'm gonna have to, if I try to sell the house, I ain't gonna get $197,000 for the house. No way. And if I can get $197,000, I'll sell it to you. I bought the house 40 some years ago. I paid $30,000 for it. I mean, and I still have to do work around it when I first bought it. I mean, I had to change things and everything else. And that's it. That's a lot of money. If I can get $197,000 for the house, I'll sell it. I'll give it to you for $197,000. I mean, what the heck? That's a lot of money. I would never pay that. No way. Maybe 100 grand, maybe, but that's it, because it ain't worth that kind of money. I mean, I can live 3 blocks away from the river and everything else, but still, it's like, that's a hell of a lot of money, and I can just imagine the ones that live in those houses by the river, what they're paying over there for their taxes. And they're gonna go crazy. You got a house that's worth $300,000 and you're gonna be paying what, $500,000 on taxes? That's a whole lot of money, you know, and the way things are going, it's bad nowadays, you know, what the heck? We're losing all kinds of stuff and we ain't getting anything back for it. All right, thank you very much.
Thank you. Mr. Clerk, did you have? Mr. Clerk, did you have a resident who's joining us virtually that wishes to make a comment or ask a question? Specific?
The individual removed their question.
Okay, we have a gentleman on the floor. Yes.
Hi, my name is Tony D'Amico. I live at 300 Fletcher Street. I just got a 6% something raise in Social Security.
Hang on one second. I just want to be mindful of the speaker who's at the microphone, please.
And 117% increase in my assessment. And I'm trying to understand if there's no more tax money to be made, why are we wasting $100 and some thousand for reassessment when people weren't complaining before? Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. I would like to give this woman a chance first.
Diane Coletta, 164 East Niagara Street. I have a question in general about the, for Katie, about the inventory. Would it happen to show if you're in an area that is adjacent to an EPA cleanup site?
So.
The whole city, right?
Our section, definitely.
Yeah, what was your address?
164 East Niagara.
East Niagara. So, I mean, those are grouped in neighborhoods. So that along with Hackett, they're grouped in different neighborhoods.
Okay, could I have one of those sent to my house?
What the comparables?
The inventory.
Of her house.
Oh, the inventory of your house? Yes. Yep.
And my lady from GAR.
Yes.
You said.
Thank you for calling me lady.
You said you didn't look at the inventory sheets that they sent over?
We use the inventory that's on the computer.
That's not good enough.
That's what we were contracted to use. So, okay.
Thank you. Mr. Clerk?
Just a comment, again, can the residents find the inventory for the 2023 assessment online?
Oh, so online on our website, cityoftonawanda.com. And you can go to, there's a link that says click here for online property assessments. And that takes you right to the assessment website where you just put in your address and it brings everything up.
Thank you, Katie.
Thank you.
Any other questions specific to? Yeah.
It's real short notice, but with it being election time and all that, couldn't each ward like have a Facebook page where I would volunteer for free to help someone, as long as I'm not held liable, to look up comps to help challenge, because the normal person, and I'm a normal person too, doesn't have the access, the MLS. I was even told by an assessment person that works on a lot of court assessment boards that the information that's online is like 3 to 6 months behind. MLS is up to date. So can't each ward have like a volunteer board to help people? We only have 3 weeks. It's not much time, but it's just a thought.
That's nice. Thank you.
You know, current as of Katie?
So I don't have access to MLS. MLS is a paid, paid service, and I did look into it at some point, and the city would have to pay for that. And that's most up-to-date real estate information. Yeah, so our system, I think captures, is it from the last roll, right? The 20,
Whatever was on your file when we ran the notices.
right, so July of 2022.
But yeah, unless you added anything.
Right, right.
Mr. Clerk, we have a comment on the floor.
Shelley Brock, 72 Longs Avenue. I just have a question because we live in a residential area, but we also have businesses. And I'm a corner house. So I have a business behind me. I have a business across the street that is turning into a junkyard. I have the salt mine that's across the street. And then we have a lot of apartment buildings that are all around us that are run down. So we're trying to get our house nice, but everybody else is bringing our house down. I don't understand how it went up, it doubled. With everything that's surrounding us, there's no way we're gonna get that money with all that litter and, I mean, because we're right in between both, so how do you do that? We're between business and residential, and we have big rigs that come down our street too, that gouge up our lawn.
Right.
So who's gonna wanna buy the house? I'm always calling the cops because these rigs are coming down and they're not supposed to. When are they gonna put signs up for the low bridges? Then my property won't be damaged. I know I have to go to a safety card, but I just figured since I'm up here, I just wanted to explain that, you know, these rigs are damaging our property too. So I don't understand between the businesses and the residential, how it could go double. And where do they get that from? If you see the house next to us, we've lived at our house for over 35 years. They've never done anything to it. So it looks like a piece of crap. Sorry, but it's true. I mean, they don't fix their houses up or apartment buildings. So I don't understand where they're getting this ballpark figure.
Well, again, it's, you know, there's sales to support the value. If you feel that we didn't consider the location enough, and you feel that you couldn't get that because of those factors, then that would be a,
Can I
you know,
take pictures and send the pictures of
Absolutely.
everything that's around me
yes,
to say what is bringing my house value down?
yes, absolutely.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, thank you. Just a few more. Anyone else? Mr. Clerk, anyone joining us virtually that has a comment or a question?
Madam President, at this time, I don't show anyone looking to make any comments on the Zoom call.
Okay.
Oh, I was gonna ask you, but if you want to ask you, please do.
Because I just. So I had three, I guess. So for Gar, when the challenge is put forth, because you keep saying it'll be considered, is there an itemized response to the challenge? So say I take pictures, whatever, it's my backyard, it's my driveway, it's my, whatever it might be. Is there an itemized response of the consideration that was had, what the end result is, and then the monetary attachment to that, if it is considered acceptable, I guess?
No,
So I'm, how do we know, you said New York State verifies. They already did that?
they did a tentative statistical run to make sure we were meeting 100%.
And do you know what they use to verify? I guess, because I'm questioning your validity, right? How do I question New York's validity? If nobody has really explained, you've explained your RPS model, but I'm still in my head trying to figure out, we're just sitting here trusting your process, your model. And where's New York State's data? I mean, where can I find New York State's data to see that it actually agreed with
They use
you?
the same file. They run statistical analysis on the numbers to make sure that we're hitting based on the sales database. based on those factors, are we hitting, the mark at 100% full value? There's statistical analysis that they run using the same sales data that we use, comparing it to the assessments and saying they're hitting 100% value.
And so the comparables you used were the last 2 years.
Yes,
If it's that, what I saw online.
Yes.
So 60 homes approximately. That's what we're all being, the validity is based on those 60 homes out of the 6,000.
I don't know how many sales, there were more than that, right?
No, so each house, it has properties that they're compared with. So your house would have 5 comparable properties.
But based on the same RPS comparable, yeah? It's not based on a sale.
Yes.
It's based on the sale.
Out of the 60 sales that were on,
No,
where are these sales from?
they're from all the sales the last 2 years. I don't know off the top of
It
my
was
head
that
how
page.
many.
I think there were like 60. So you're, the one that's on the assessor's site, the comparables.
That's
That's what they're
comparables.
all, sorry, they're all based on those comparables.
No, those are just, I think it's just a group of homes that are, when you put your address in,
Yeah.
It pulls.
that pulls
Based on-
for that.
Right,
So
so
that
you-
it gives you more of a list, because the model only uses 5. And that list gives you more.
I just scrolled through all the sales.
Right,
That's what I'm.
you could, right, you
Okay,
could
so
go.
I guess the question then is, if, I'm gonna ask you for, my name is Elizabeth Olka, 65 Cleveland Avenue. If you could send Martha Olka, 65 Cleveland Avenue, the comparables that were used, also the inventory list. I'm curious then, when I challenge for my mother, what if there are no comparables on your list? You're gonna send them to me and they're gonna be against an inventory that doesn't exist. So now I know for a fact, the comparables are not going to be correct. What do I do to find the comparables that are actually comparable? If you're gonna send me, I guess that's where probably most people's confusion is, especially if their inventory is wrong.
Yeah.
Clearly, your assessment has to be somewhat wrong. And then what do I do at that point with, and I'm saying for me, but I'm sure this is pertinent to anybody out there who's having the same situation where the comparables can't be utilized because the inventory is wrong. So now I go to look for comparables, I can't find them because I'm not even sure at this point, what is my house? I live in it and I don't know how many bedrooms I have at this point. You know what I'm
So
saying?
you can find if you say your house, we'll just say 2 bedrooms, 1 bathroom, and the square footage, you can look in the sales and compare those other houses.
And what qualifies as a bedroom?
It has to have a closet, I
See,
believe.
so here's the
Like,
interesting thing. I have a text from our #1 real estate agent in the city of Tonawanda, who said electrical, heat, and 2 ways of egress. So now there's a definition here, and I'm asking because if it's different for the assessor's office than it would be for a listing, but we're using the listing to do the assessment. Holy cow,
We're not using listings.
but you must be, because that's the market value is the houses that sold.
We're not using the
I
inventory that's
understand what
on
you're
the
saying,
listing.
but that's what the price of our house is based on. You understand? Guess where they're getting the inventory from? Because nowhere did I ever list my house as a 4-bedroom, 1 bath, yet it's listed on Zillow as such. Where did they get that information from?
That comes from our
Your
system.
database.
Right, so whoever entered it
Yes,
in the city,
good question. So who did that? And I know it wasn't you.
yeah,
We were trying to figure out, like Pat Bacon was probably still paper, so
yes.
that's
very
where
well.
probably this error was a human error of inputting.
And that's what I said, call me, I can pull your property folder, see
I
what's
feel
in the
more comfortable
record.
if the whole city of Tonawanda did an audit of the inventory.
Well, and I'll tell you on that too, every single sale that comes through
Yes,
my
correct.
office gets a sales verification form.
Right.
I probably get 1 in every 10 back.
Yeah.
So,
Well, when I listened to the podcast, Katie, and you were there with Dave, the first thing that was said was an inventory postcard was going out. I never got it. It never happened.
I'm not sure. I don't know about that.
Yeah, I mean, that was step one.
But
I
that-
actually listened to your podcast with you by yourself. Step one was an inventory postcard. And I know you're looking at the clock and I won't take up any more time. I'm really, the process doesn't make sense because if, as I suspect, inventory was wrong, the houses on listed, right, at whatever the market value is, they're inflated. You correct it once the sale goes through, but it's still an inflated market based on wrong inventory. And now I'm gonna get comparables that you looked at my house, right? You're gonna send them to me. I'm gonna look at them. They're going to be very high because, again, it's more expensive depending on what the inventory is.
I
Yes?
just say, let's take a look
Yeah,
at
no doubt.
your, every
And so-
situation's different, but yep.
For after hours, again, I have a full-time job. What makes me mad is like, I'm a teacher. I want to get Minecraft in my classroom, but I'm sitting here doing this. You know what I mean? Like, so people have full-time jobs. And in the case of the senior population here, you know how many aren't standing here? Probably the majority of them. I'm not even sure the man who was standing here prior to me understood what the process was. Because I think he thought standing here, sharing it with you might help. That's my biggest concern is that as people who represent the city of Tonawanda, that should be yours. It really is a shame. Okay. All right.
Okay. All right, first, I want to thank Cindy for coming out. I called you yesterday afternoon and invited you for this evening. So thank you for coming out on short notice. Just one more time for everybody, if you could supply the phone number so residents can call.
Yep, so the phone number for GAR is 1-866-910-1776. And my phone number, 695-8638.
Okay. So with that said, I'd like to make a motion to resume our regular proceeding. Do I have a second? Second by Mr. Mylum. Mr. Clerk, can you please call the roll?
Olanich,
Here.
Aye.
Nocera,
Aye.
Rautenstrau,
Here.
Mylum,
I hear.
Cook.
Aye. All right, we'll let some of the residents filter out. I just asked that if you're not staying for the formal, if you could go out in the hallway, just so we could.
Conversations.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for
If anyone has any questions.
We'll call you. Okay. All right, I'd like to begin our regular proceedings. I will now take comments by the public on the resolutions. For those that are joining us virtually, there is a spot for you to raise your hand. Please do so and the clerk will call upon you. For those that are joining us in person, please approach the microphone.
Council President, would you say discuss the resolution? Local law number 1 falls under that, correct?
Correct.
Christopher Fisher, 413 Main Street. For those of you who are left in the room, I gotta give you a quick timeline before I talk about local law number 1. In 2021, the council voted to and authorize the assessment that we're all arguing about now. As the council president, 3rd Ward Council and 4th Ward Council, along with Don Kamenider, who was on the board at the time, and they voted for this assessment, knowing that that assessment was looming.
Mr. Fisher, what's the question on the
I'm
resolution?
discussing the resolution. Give me a second to build my timeline. This current council, knowing that that resolution was pending, voted to raise our taxes 3.89%, knowing the assessment was about to come out. So now on local law number one, I'd like to point out that you guys are trying to authorize a local law amongst yourselves to go above the tax cap in preparation of raising our taxes in 2024. So as these people stand up here and complain that our taxes and our assessments are going through the roof, you guys are trying to pre-authorize another tax raise for 2024. So this needs to be defeated before the public hearing date. And knowing this, all of you, I'm sorry, I have to stand corrected. Mr. Rotherstock was the only one who voted no on the 2022 budget. He did stand up for the 2022 budget tax increase. And he did vote no. I apologize for that. I have it on my notes. So with that being said, the local law number one needs to be defeated here by this council before it goes to the public hearing. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Fisher. Any other comments on the resolutions? Mr. Clerk, any residents who are joining us virtually have a comment on the resolutions?
Madam President, I do not show anyone on the Zoom call looking to make any comments on the resolutions at this time.
Okay, let's proceed.
Resolution number one by Councilmember Lulanich.
Do we have a second?
I'll second it.
Second by Mr. Nocera.
Resolved that the common council minutes from February 21st, 2023 be accepted as filed.
Comments or questions?
It's too noisy out there.
Chief, would you mind just asking them to move further away from the door? Thank you, Chief. Comments or questions? Please call the roll.
Lulanich.
Aye.
Nocera.
Aye.
Rautenstrau.
Aye.
Mylum.
Aye.
Cook.
I declare the resolution adopted.
Resolution two by Councilmember Rautenstrau.
Do we have a second? Second by Mrs. Lulanich.
Resolved that the recommendation of the city engineer, Jason J. Lamonaco, P.E., that award of design and bid amendment number one for the City Hall Court Office renovation project be made to Wendell W.D. Architecture, Engineering, Surveying, and Landscape Architecture, P.C. at a cost not to exceed $3,700. Funding fiscal impact, $3,700 from the New York State Courts.
Comments or questions? Please call the roll.
Lulanich.
Aye.
Nocera.
Aye.
Rautenstrau.
Aye.
Mylum.
Aye.
Cook.
I declare the resolution adopted.
Resolution number three by Council President Cook.
Do you have a second?
I'll take it.
Second by Mr. Mylum.
Resolved that the following individuals be named as Commissioner of Deeds for the city of Tonawanda, term to expire December 31st, 2024, as per your agenda.
Comments or questions? Please call the roll.
Lulanich.
Aye.
Nocera.
Aye.
Rautenstrau.
Aye.
Mylum.
Aye.
Cook.
I declare the resolution adopted.
Resolution number four by Councilmember Rautenstrau.
Do we have a second?
I'll take it.
Second by Mr. Nocera.
Whereas the city of Tonawanda plans to augment existing riprap along the Niagara River in Niawanda Park, and whereas 6 NYCRR Section 617.5 Title 6 of the New York State Code of Rules and Regulations under the State Environmental Quality Review Act, SEQR, provides that certain actions identified in subdivision C of that section are not subject to environmental review under the Environmental Conservation Law. Now therefore be resolved that the city of Tonawanda hereby determines that the proposed Niagara River shoreline improvements is a type 2 action in accordance with 6 NYCRR section 617.5 subsection C1, maintenance or repair involving no substantial changes in the existing structure or facility and is hereby not subject to review under 6 New York CRR section, part 617.
Comments or questions? Please call the roll.
Lalanich,
Aye.
Nocera,
Aye.
Rautenstrau,
Aye.
Mylum,
Aye.
Cook.
I declare the resolution adopted.
Resolution number 5 by Councilmember Lalanich.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Mylum.
Resolved at the recommendation of the city engineer, Jason J. Lamonaco, P.E., that award of Delawanda Storm Sewer Investigation Change Order Number 1 be made to DEKRA Inspections, Inc. at a cost not to exceed $20,000. Funding fiscal impact, $20,000 from the ARPA funds.
Comments or questions? Please call the roll.
Lalanich,
Aye.
Nocera,
Aye.
Rautenstrau,
Aye.
Mylum,
Aye.
Cook.
I declare the resolution adopted.
Resolution number 6 by Councilmember Nocera.
Do we have a second? I'll second.
Resolved the city of Tonawanda Common Council authorizes and directs Mayor John White to execute the contract with Premier Infrastructure and Energy for the underground electrical utility locating services over a 1-year period at a cost not to exceed $35,100. Funding fiscal impact is $35,000 for the 1 year.
Comments or questions? Please call the roll.
Lalanich,
Aye.
Nocera,
Aye.
Rautenstrau,
Aye.
Mylum,
Aye.
Cook.
I declare the resolution adopted.
Resolution number 7 by Councilmember Rautenstrau.
Do we have a second?
I'll take it.
Second by Mr. Nocera.
Madam President, I'd like to make a motion to waive the reading of 7 and 8, please.
Okay, so Mr. Clerk, we have a motion by Mr. Mylum to waive readings 7 and 8. Do I have a second?
I'll second, Madam President.
Second by Mr. Rounstrau. Please call the roll.
Lalanich,
Aye.
Nocera,
Aye.
Rautenstrau,
Aye.
Mylum,
Aye.
Cook.
Aye.
Resolution number 7 by Councilmember Rautenstrau.
Seconded by Mr. Nocera. Comments or questions? Please call the roll.
Lalanich,
Aye.
Nocera,
Aye.
Rautenstrau,
Aye.
Mylum,
Aye.
Cook.
I declare the resolution adopted.
Resolution number 8 by Councilmember Nocera.
Do we have a second?
I'll second, Madam President.
Second by Mrs. Lalanich. Sorry,
There's a tie. What's the lead?
it was me. Comments or questions? Please call the roll.
Lalanich,
Aye.
Nocera,
Aye.
Rautenstrau,
Aye.
Mylum,
Aye. Aye.
I declare the resolution adopted.
Resolution number 9 by the council, seconded by the council. Whereas local law number 1 for the year 2023 for the city of Tonawanda, entitled "A Local Law Authorizing the City of Tonawanda to Impose a Property Tax Levy in excess of the limit established in New York State General Municipal Law, Article 2, Section 3-C, was unanimously introduced by the Common Council on February 21st, 2023, and laid upon each council member's desk for 7 days, excluding Sunday. And whereas the proposed local law number 1 for the year 2023 has been reviewed and deliberated upon by the Common Council, now therefore be resolved that the Common Council hereby approves and enacts local law number 1 for the year 2023 attached hereto and made part hereof as per your agenda.
Comments or questions?
I have one, Madam President.
Mr. Mylum?
Yeah, I've just, this is a very difficult thing, because when you speak with the treasurer, and look what our budget is forecast for next year, already. To not go over this is I don't know what we would do to stay under. But on the other hand, I almost want to see what would happen if we didn't. What would we have to do? Because I think what residents need to understand is there's a choice between services and taxes. So if we decide to stay under, there will be a massive reduction in services. Massive. If we go over, there's going to be a big raise in taxes. Looking at the numbers for next year and just so people know, the bill that you get in 3 weeks for your bill for taxes has nothing to do with this year's assessment. Has nothing to do with it. That hasn't hit yet. And next year, the projection is ungodly. So I'm not sure where to go on this one. But I do want to say that I also don't want to write a blank check. Thank you, Madam President.
Thank you, Mr. Mylum. Any other comments?
I agree with my colleague from the fourth ward on future prices that are going to be very hard to look at without some kind of relief for this year. And if we don't pass this local law number 1, it gives us a tool in the toolbox to at least buffer that somewhat and not look at such a large increase on the next time we look at a budget for 24.
Any other comments?
Just to go back, the thing that always sticks in the back of my mind, in working in the district with the kids and the families. I believe it was Mr. Kankar who alluded to that we were a poor community, and we are. Our average household income, this is not per person, this is household, is about $54,000 per household. I believe the state aidable rate, which is directly tied to free lunches in the city, is about 70 to 80%, fluctuates. That means 70 to 80% of the kids that walk through the front door of school are getting a free and reduced lunch. That means families can't afford to feed their kids, so they get free food at school. $50,000 is not a lot of money as a household, and it's funding some pretty incredible salaries. So that's where I am.
Thank you, Mr. Mylum. Any other comments? Please call the roll.
Lulanich.
Aye.
Nocera.
No.
Madam President, resolutions by the council, seconded by the council.
That's correct. They can vote it down.
Okay. Rautenstrau.
No.
Milo.
Nope.
Cook.
Nay, resolution has been defeated.
And I'm going to say this as well. I know the public isn't privy to our text between us, but I've asked for an immediate hiring freeze. And I think we need to start planning for next year's budget right now. Not in October. 3 weeks, 4 weeks is not enough time. When COVID hit, we sat down and we went through that budget yet again, line by line by line. I think every dollar that we can save is going to benefit us on the other end. And the other news is all of our contracts are up December 31st of this year. That is going to be another piece that we have to factor into what comes with the budget. So there's a lot of moving parts on this. There's a lot of moving parts in the budget. And I can't speak for everybody up here, but
Mr. Round, I just want to move forward with the rest.
I understand. I just want people to know that we're here for you. Thank you.
So, Mr., you'll have, that opportunity. All right, resolution 10.
Resolution number 10 by the council, second by the council. Whereas local law number 2 for the year 2023 for the city of Tonawanda entitled a local law to authorize a real estate property tax exemption for city real estate property taxes pursuant to New York State Real Property Tax Law, Section 485-A, entitled Residential Commercial Urban Exemption, was unanimously introduced by the common council on February 21st, 2023, and laid upon the desk of each council member for 7 days, excluding Sunday. And whereas the proposed local law number 2 for the year 2023 has been reviewed and deliberated by the common council. Now therefore be resolved, the common council hereby approves and enacts local law number 2 for the year 2023, attached hereto and made a part hereof as per your agenda.
Comments or questions? Please call the roll.
Lulanich,
Aye.
Nocera,
Aye.
Rautenstrau,
Aye.
Mylum,
Aye.
Cook.
I declare the resolution adopted. At this time, I'd like to make a motion to go into executive session for personnel of particular persons and contract negotiations. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Nocera. Mr. Clerk, please call the roll.
This was, Madam President, the resolution was made by, I'm sorry,
Myself, seconded by Mr. Nocera.
and what was the purpose of the executive session?
Personnel of particular persons and contract negotiations.
Okay, Lulanich,
Aye.
Nocera,
Aye.
Rautenstrau,
Aye.
Mylum,
Aye.
Cook.
Aye. All right, at this time, we'll be going into executive session. When we come out, we will resume back on the floor here.
Madam President, I do have over 30 individuals in the Zoom meeting. I'm gonna have to put them all in the waiting room at this
Thank you.
time
Thank you, Mr. Clerk.
and pause the recording.
Thank you.
So you're thinking I should.
We're in that following jail, I have about just.
That's why it's next to the chair, so she
Is
can.
that even working?
It was working, you gotta remember, this mic goes into the feed, that mic goes to the audience. Speakers. So if you're in Jim's office, you can hear every single person here, but this doesn't go back. This is only this.
Is it informal or,
Yes,
so will that be out there?
it's my understanding it was, yes. I double checked with Jim, but it was, right?
Oh, no, we're talking about the informal order. I'm saying that the microphone works, but it only works. Like if you're in Jim's office, it's really loud. But out here, it doesn't back to those.
Ah, okay,
Live and learn.
that's all right.
We can still hear everyone better than when everyone's whispering at the table, everyone's behind them. And then some idiot treasurers make jokes, you can't hear it. March 28th, this will be on the record, that's what I'm saying. Where did you get my spiel?
This is the 80.
Madam President, at this time, everyone from the waiting room has been brought back into the meeting and we are recording at this time.
Okay, at this time, we'll now take comments by the public following the resolutions. For those that are joining us in person, please approach the microphone. For those of you that are joining us virtually, there is a spot for you to raise your hand. Please do so and the clerk will call upon you. Mr. Clerk, we have a comment on the floor.
Hi, William Reese, 72 Walter Avenue. I'm the city treasurer. In light of what we've talked about tonight, I'd like to remind the public and invite them to March 28th. It's my second treasurer's roundtable this year. On March 28th, 7 o'clock, City Hall.
We were tasked by the group, we had 10 people come last month. And they asked that I take a department and break it down line by line, salaries, equipment, supplies, and just go through the entire department. So for March 28th, Tuesday night, fourth Tuesday of the month, we will be taking the police department budget and going through it, explaining what we use for salaries, how we do the increases, how we figure the fringe benefits, how we cost out the ammunition for the firing range, what we do for the cars. I'm using the police first because it's a very detailed budget. The chief does a wonderful job every year, and so it's a lot easier to have people understand where we're going. So again, I invite everyone to come on March 28th. If possible, I might be able to Zoom it, but we'll try to record it this time. I know the last meeting, I didn't have the computer set up for that. But what we'd like to do is have people see how we work, how in the mayor's office, when the department heads come in, that we work through a budget, how we formulate it, and then how that department head presents it to the council and defends their ask. So that's what we'll be doing specifically on March 28th, and I'll also answer questions. And again, for the public, if you have questions on budget, if you have questions on how we formulate the tax rate, if you have those, I'm always at my office. It's 695-8629. You can email me at treasurer@tonawandacity.com. I'm also on the city website, tonawandacity.com. Go down to the treasurer's department. You'll find me on there. I will always welcome questions. I'd be happy to talk to anyone that has a question to formulate that. And again, I look forward to everyone coming in on March 28th. And I know I've spoke to the Madam Council President, but I will make myself available also for whatever we choose to do as a council for workshops. But at any point, if a council member has a question, you don't have to wait for the workshop. I'm in my office. Give me a call, send me an email. I'll do my best to explain, and I can always take time and we can have coffee and discuss this. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Reeves.
Thank you.
I was gonna let them do the online first. If Jim has anybody there.
Mr. Clerk, do you have any residents wishing to address the council?
Madam President, I do not show anyone from the Zoom call looking to make any comments at this time.
Okay, we have a comment on the floor.
Okay, Elizabeth Olka, 65 Cleveland Avenue. I'm sure you're tired of hearing me, but I don't come. I haven't come in 15 years, it feels like. So as for voting down the tax cap, obviously fiscally responsible. I'm just curious if anyone here is, what does that, can you tell me what it actually means for, is it the same, it's got to stay the same as this year's budget?
No.
No.
Speak on that, just.
Yeah, come on.
I know you're as good as I am.
No,
All right.
come on up, Mr.
So
Reeves.
again, the way the state works is the office of the state controller sets a cap, and typically it's 2%. But they change it every year. Usually comes out every July. They'll notify the municipal governments. They'll notify it comes to NICOM. We find out what the new cap is. Some years it's 1.5, but typically they say 2. It's a rolling thing. So last year we stayed under the cap because the cap was 1.8. But because the year before we actually didn't have any tax increase at all, we were credited back with the other 2%. So that's how we were able to go up 3.8%, because the cap was 1.8. We didn't use the 2, so we were able to go up 3.8. And we went up to we were $75 under the cap on our levy. It's not on the tax rate. So again, don't think the tax rate's 19 now and it's 11 after the thing, so we have all this room. It's not, it's still levy. And then, so we won't even know what the tax cap could be 1.5, it could be 1. We don't know. That's why when we say it's better to override, because now when it gets to be July and we find out it's 1, now, that's another $300,000-400,000 we have to cut from the budget to stay under or take from the fund balance. So that's why when we talk about having a tool in your toolbox, just because you've overridden the cap doesn't mean you have to go over the cap. North Tonawanda does it all the time. They did it, in 2020, they had that farcical meeting where they overrode it, but they had the Zoom bombing, Zoom was nil. And then in the end, they didn't go over the cap, but they had the meeting. So it's a tool, you set it, but without overriding the cap, if we decide to budget higher than the tax levy, It's a $1-for-$1 out of our state aid, so we just lose it. And the people pay the taxes on the higher as we go over, but then the state takes it back, so it's a double hit to the taxpayers. Because they're paying it, but then the state's taking it back as punishment. So they're punishing the taxpayers for the government's inaction. That's why it's kind of important, but then again, we'll work very hard to get as low as we can and not use as much fund balance. But again, that's why it's important that we have more public input so they can understand why, if we have to cut services, that would be those meetings in the fourth Tuesday and coming to council meetings. It's a shame so many people left before they had a chance to hear that part of it.
Yeah, okay, so as a follow-up to that, you know, it's not the state punishing us, it's you guys. So you want to sit here, you have to now understand that it's you punishing us. Because if you can't do things that are necessary, we've seen this for the last foreverness, right? Costs go up. I'm a union president. I belong to another union. It's a very interesting situation. So our negotiations, we're always increasing. I'm lucky that I work in a district where they actually have the money and they don't have to increase people's taxes to do it. Here, we're not like that. We haven't been like this, yet we continue to hire. And Dave, as for the services, we don't lose services. And I'm bothered by that statement because we lose people, but we're not cutting services. Does it mean that we may pay overtime? You have to now offset to see what that difference is, sure. But to say we're not going to lose services. And I kind of find that to be a scare tactic that's been used forever. Okay, so we're not going to lose our police, we're not going to lose our fire, but you guys now have a very difficult situation on your hands where if you continue to hire new senior rec leaders, or really? Sorry. No, that doesn't factor in, right? Because somebody drew up some revenue differences that say it's going to pay for itself, right? I doubt it. So we have all these people we hire people, we pay people, those benefits, the retirement system, it just keeps adding on and adding on. And now we're sitting here in a situation where you wanted to make it an equal value, but you don't know how to cut anything, right? We don't dissolve positions. I heard an interesting thing that apparently we had realigned our highway department, our DPW, to oversee parks, right? Did we figure that we needed them separate? Like you have an opportunity to consolidate. If you don't consolidate, this problem doesn't go away. If you continue to hire people in a situation where the city doesn't have the money that you're looking for, the people that showed up here are a small percentage, sure, but no one has money to continue to pay for the 125 employees of the city of Tonawanda, right? There's 6,000 people here, and it seems those that show up to your house and picket are more important than the people that live here. So I hope you consider that. I do applaud you for voting that down tonight, because it would be ridiculous if you didn't after the people that showed up tonight. So I hope if you're running for office right now, that you're willing to actually do what's necessary to hold the line or cut in order to save the people who live here.
Thank you for your comment. Any other comments? Mr. Clerk, any comments from those that are joining us virtually?
Madam President, I do not show anyone looking to make any comments at this time.
All right, Mr. Nocera.
Clerk.
Thank you, Mr. Nocera. Mr. Rautenstrau.
Thank you, Madam President. I know we've mostly cleared out here, but I just want to start with thanking all the residents, especially for showing up here, expressing their concerns, sharing their stories with us, and not only here, but the people that have reached out to me over the past weekend, phone calls, meeting them at the street and talking to people. I appreciate hearing from you, and that's kind of what we're up here to do. So thank you. Number two, I also want to revisit the fact that I've heard a lot of different things. You read things on Facebook, you hear a lot of different things, a lot of finger pointing, shifting of blame. I don't want to address that because I think we're all here in our position to do a job. whatever that job is, whatever's been handed to us. And I think that's very important. I do want to say that I was and take ownership for the person that sponsored and advocated for this revaluation. I think it's important. I think it's fiscally responsible for a lot of good reasons that we've discussed, and I'm pretty sure everybody here supported it at the time, or at least didn't try to rescind it. So I think we're all working towards the right thing. With that fiscal responsibility, we've heard stories from people here that are suffering severe increases. We talked about this being painted with a large brush, and there's processes in place, and it sounds like there's a lot of people that have valid cases, valid changes to protest their increases. And I encourage everybody to do that. I think everybody should be fairly appraised, and it should be equitable. And I think a lot of information was given to us today. So I also thank Cindy Barr for being here to provide some additional information. But in regards to the fiscal responsibility, I think that also shines light on possibly some less than responsible fiscalness, possibly some fiscal irresponsibility. You know, we're going into next year, and we've talked about it, that we have a potential of 14.5% tax increase starting next year, based all things considered. And we've said that's if we do nothing. Last year in November, Mr. Fisher brought it up when he spoke. I did express those concerns in approving the budget. I think that we need to look at things. The ideas and the cuts that I brought forward were, again, to maintain the services that we already had. My concerns that I expressed were about increasing the number of services with things, increasing the number of employees and hires with the direction that we're going over the next year. I wish that was taken more into consideration. I hope we can continue to move forward, and I hope we can find better ways to keep our spending in check and in line, and better service our community. That's all I really have. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Rounstrau. Mr. Mylum?
I'm gonna I'll keep it brief. It's an interesting situation to be up here, because when you get elected or run for office, you have all these ideas of how you're going to change the city and how you're going to change the world, or whatever it may be. But you can't predict what's going to come down the pipe when you're sitting in the chair. And you can't predict whether that's a good thing that comes at you or a bad thing. And I've always thought it was interesting, a perspective to look at it like that. Because you can, on one meeting night, you can be a hero, and then the next meeting night, you're a zero. And it's all depending on what external forces that you have no control over. So I think the best thing as an elected official that you can do is to be responsive to the constituents, to the residents, and try to be as proactive as possible. And I think that's where the vote came from tonight, was to start that proactively. Instead of, I've been here for 6 years, and in the past, there's been a lot of reactivity, right? When I first started, we were reacting to a 7-year contract. Mayor White walked into a 7-year contract, and that 7-year contract that was that we were in, has implications that are going to be farther on down than probably any of our times on this board. So I think no matter who's sitting up here, we all have one goal in mind, and that's to be as responsible as we can to you guys. I do wish other people were here. And it's an interesting situation too, because this is an election year, right? So my take on it is I'm counting on it as this is my swan song. However much time I've got left, if it's 6 months or if it's 2 years. But I think to say in the next 6 months, my dedication is going to be trying to help to right the wrongs. And the ones that I have responsibility. 6 months, I can't have 8 months, whatever month this is. But that's my focus, win or lose in November. So, and I think that's, if you pull the audio or the group up here, that's the same kind of thought, is that it's time to fix something. So thank you all for staying. Thank the people for coming. It's hard to get up here and speak. Especially when there's other people here, and it's a difficult situation. So I'm just going to say thank you for listening to me speak from the heart. This is not an election year speech. Like I said, whatever happens, happens. So thank you, and thanks for everybody for coming.
Thank you, Mr. Mylan. Mrs. Lalanish.
I apologize, Ms. Olfa, for my outbursts, my inappropriate, unexpected reaction. I apologize. And like my colleagues, I think it's so cool that we had so many people tonight. There's a lot of emotion, and I just, every day is in this role is such a cool, powerful learning experience. So this was another frontline civics, a lesson, and it was just really appreciated. I do have, in an effort to continue sharing information for the residency reconsideration topic that I have been sharing. I have more information to share. This is from our neighbors to the north in North Tonawanda. So it is referencing their police department's MOU with their community, with their mayor about residency, even though their charter still specifies residency across the board. They have had, actually it just expired after 5 years, their MOU, but it's still in place. Striking residency for their police. And their PBA president shared his and the PBA's opinion on that, and shared some data on that. So I have that. So I have copies for each of you and the city clerk, so it can be made public if anyone needs to see it. So we'll just continue to add to that dialogue in the effort to right wrongs. That's my personal opinion. And lastly, a former council member, William Sheldon, who is my mentor from civil service. I was late because I attended Mickey Sheldon's wake, and she's amazing. And I was very lucky to know her, and everybody that had a chance to meet her. There are angels that walk among us, and she is one of them. So that's it.
Thank you, Mrs. Lalanish. Mayor.
Thank you, Madam President. Wow, what an interesting night. I want to thank everybody that showed up and expressed their views. We are a low-income community. Everywhere I go, every time I submit something, application for grants, we are considered a low-income community. Let's face it, we've gone down to 15,000 strong in our community, which is a very small community. Trying to get grants, trying to get things done, it's not simple. And my colleague, David, you're right. We did a lot of wrong, but let's not point fingers and let's say, let's move ahead. We'll move ahead stronger than we've ever been because we've got some common sense, and common sense is very difficult to find when you're talking politics, unfortunately. I just want to say, let's not play the political game, quit the garbage. Let's move forward with intelligent decisions, and let's move what's best for the citizens that voted us in these positions. Couple things. I want to thank Katie for her professionalism. Katie Schultz. I want to thank her for coming out tonight. She's not used to sitting up here and talking in front of groups like that, and I want to thank her for that. And also from GAR, having Cindy come in, I want to thank her for coming in also. She gets paid for it. Yes, she does. But again, thank you for coming in. Bottom line is let the process work. Let the process work. Let Katie, our assessor, who is in that position because we trust what she does, let her do her job. Let's let her do her job. If you have questions, go to GAR because that's what's on your pamphlet. And then if you have questions after that, Katie is there to help. I've seen what's happened since those letters gone out, and the clerk's office is crazy. Thank you, Jim and Bill, for keeping that sanity in that office with a little bit of jokes, a little bit of activity. It's very difficult because when you get people screaming at you on the phone and coming to the window, it gets very difficult. It really is. But anyway, it's hard to do, and I want to say thank you. And again, let's move forward and let's move forward together for the better of the city of Tonawanda. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. Yes, certainly it was a long night, but I feel this was a very productive night. We felt it was very important to have Cindy here from GAR and hear from the associate or from the residents. And I know that there will be further communications, informational sessions, one-on-one meetings. As we learn of those, we will certainly communicate those meetings out to the public as best we can. I thank everybody for coming tonight. And Mrs. Lalana shared some very heartwarming sentiments about Mr. Sheldon's wife, but who we all knew up here. And I just ask that you keep his family and the family of Mr. Durner in your thoughts and prayers this week. With that said, I'd like to thank everybody for coming out tonight. And I'd like the council to consider some workshops on an off night with our treasurer, so we could really have a discussion about 2024 and moving forward. With that said, have a great night. I'm going to make a motion to adjourn. Do I have a second? Second by Mr. Mylum. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Drive home safe, everyone.
Thank you.
That concludes our meeting this evening. Our next council meeting is going to be on Tuesday, March 21st. Thanks again for joining the Zoom call this evening. Have a great night.
What do you think?
We'll be ending the call at this time.
Oh, it's already, yeah, this year.
So far, or one more.